Okay, Maren, welcome and happy Saturday.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Have a little bit of good news to kick off. Got two pieces of news on Friday. One is that the cell tower at Newtown Hill, there was an approved extension from several years ago, and now AT&T has come back and said that yes, they really do want to do that. And funds from that tower are conservation purposes.
Right, they're
Okay,
designated.
Right,
and,
so-
about how much is it an increment or is it just an extension of what we've been doing?
Well, for engineering side, it's a 15-foot extension on top of the existing tower that had been approved a few years ago. We need to get those approvals redone. The lease amounts, I don't have those numbers.
Okay, but it's good news for the conservation fund.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what fund does it actually go into and what can it be used for?
So in the past, those funds have been used to augment CPC. We've drawn them as they're available to help meet that extra 2% that they're allowed to go up to.
Right.
Other than that, it can be used to purchase or maintain conservation properties.
But it's a town meeting vote to get it out.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah, so that, and then the next building at the Point that they're going to be coming back to the planning board for is a second hotel.
Yay!
Really?
Revenue.
Really? I hadn't heard that before.
Pushing that.
I
Where they gonna put it?
had heard rumblings about it,
I
but
think in the back.
It's in the place it gets paid.
it's building pad M. They're gonna be trading some spaces. The first building pad M was a smaller building in kind of this side of O'Neill Cinema.
Yeah.
They're gonna swap some more room, expand that pad, and so that'll leave less
So-
space
So
off to the left.
it'll be visible from the highway and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Right, right, same group that developed the hotel that's there now. It'll be a different brand, but similar.
Oh, wow, okay.
Wow.
So they're gonna,
Ka-ching.
It's a Marriott property.
And plus they feed all those other businesses that are up there too. I mean, that's the restaurant, right?
exactly, yeah, and the numbers for occupancy in the existing one are outrageous.
Really?
It's-
Yeah?
Yeah, what's the range?
Wow.
You're talking about the revenue for the hotel?
Yeah.
So just the room excise tax brings in about $250,000 annually, just on that one hotel.
Nice.
And the rates, I mean, so if you go at the last minute, you try to get a room, it's like 300 bucks a night.
Right, and it's on-demand pricing, so as, you know, that means it's full most of the
Right,
time.
yeah.
So what does that do to their sewerage system? I know.
Good for you, Fred.
Well,
Connect those dots, man.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. They're working with DEP now on upgrading. They have a plan for phasing,
Yep.
and they're working with DEP now on
Okay.
the phasing.
Well, okay. Well, the good
But that's
news-
part of the push of coming into
well,
ours, right?
Potentially, if they upgrade their system, the likelihood of the Point hooking up to the town system goes down.
Right.
Or if the town system was available, which doesn't sound like it would be in that time frame, they would, want to do that. But it sounds like the timing is going to drive them to do their own system.
Ouch.
And that would push the Point out even further, hooking up into a town
Yeah.
system, I would think, is
I
my.
think you're right.
Well, and it kind of depends on how you look at what's a town system and what's a Point system, and can those be a little flexible? There are certainly options for others.
Okay, good.
Anyway,
Well,
so.
you can come any day. You're doing better than the rest of them.
I'm excited, thank you. Budget numbers, the staffing, general appropriation request is the same as it's been. It covers 35 hours a week of my salary, plus office expenses. And the rest of the requests are all capital requests. Staffing under capital requests for master plan implementation includes 5 hours a week of my time, and I'm requesting going from 10 hours a week to 19 hours a week for department clerk. We had a department clerk for off and on for about a year now, and it's been amazing, very helpful to free my time up for more professional level work. So that's what 30. What numbers do I have? 32 for the.
Okay, so that's another 24,000 basically. So on the second page of the,
Let's see, conservation, I think I gotta go to the other tab of plan.
that's on.
No, that's building.
If you've got alphabetical,
Okay,
it's on.
so
If you've got
I must not.
11 or 12.
12.
It's supposed to be 12, but I see conservation, I don't see planning.
Yeah.
You have planning?
It's not on there, shouldn't it? Oh, it's on there.
Oh, that's why, you got mine.
Oh, I gotta watch it.
I'll tell you, I got this guy, absolutely.
Okay.
Uh-huh. I see it.
It's in the capital.
Okay,
Right.
so you did right.
I have used the word flummoxed in regard to munis and trying to.
Sometimes we call it mucus.
So anyway, when looking at the capital plan, there's two staffing lines. The 20,000 is the 19 hours a week of the department clerk, and 11.3 is 5 hours a week of my time. Let's see, and then 3 planning studies. We're requesting funding for 3 planning studies for next year. The first one, $50,000 to update the housing production plan. That one, I'm the most,
I don't have it.
you don't have that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's the last,
it's the last page.
very last page.
That's
and- I'm not educated on the, what exactly is that?
Housing production plan?
it.
Housing production
Yeah,
plan
no.
is a
And it should be
document
stated.
that examines housing
Right.
needs,
Right.
helps us
Yeah,
understand
pardon, section L,
who's overhoused, who's
in
underhoused,
the last page.
kinds of housing is needed to meet residents' needs. Are people paying too much of their income?
I didn't have it, I got,
Housing.
yeah, two, and I got this one, and I
That was one of the first studies that helped us understand how quickly we're growing, how quickly we're aging, when we looked at that 5 years ago. If you have a certified housing production plan.
Thank you.
And under 10% under subsidized housing inventory, then that can get you some protections. But where Littleton's already above 10%, I'm putting this request in the iffy category. I'm not convinced that we need to spend the money now to do it, even though it is, should be done every 5 years, where we've got the new census data coming out mid-2021. We'll have 2020 census data, and we should be.
Maybe tie it into that.
Yeah, we should be tying into that. And we expect to stay above the 10% subsidized housing inventory after that census, so it doesn't buy us any protections. Would be nice to be able to answer the one question of how much age-appropriate housing do we need over the next few years? But I don't think that that's the $50,000 study. I think
A lot of that study's kind of already going on.
yeah, we don't have in-house capacity to look at the detailed data to work through that well enough. But I think this is more the $10,000 to $12,000 study than the $50,000.
So I guess a question for Bonnie, there's $110,000 of capital requested for master plan stuff. Are there other master plan requests in other budgets? I mean, you know, this thing seems to be continuing to take on a life of its own.
What I asked of the Master Plan Implementation Committee was, put a list together for this budget process, not wait until closer to town meeting and say, these are our requests. So the Great Road Corridor Study and the infrastructure in the common, those two line items are their priority requests.
Okay, so there aren't other requests tucked somewhere else for somebody? Okay.
Lauren, do you think that the 19-hour-a-week position, is that going to be a permanent one? Is that something that?
Yeah.
So that should be in operating,
Yeah, it should
request
now.
instead of the capital.
It's
So I'll
good.
just, I'll
No,
shift
yeah,
it. I just
yeah.
wanted to put it in the right place.
And I guess last year I had requested that the 5 hours a week go to a permanent, but
Yeah.
it's funded, however. you know,
Okay, so this is the difference between the 5 hour and the 19 hour, not the whole thing. Okay. There's an increase when 5 to 19. Okay.
Well, you're getting us a hotel, so you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, take an extra bag of chips. Any other questions from Bob? Great. Now, legal actions and legal costs, are they sort of in line? I know they go through the selectmen in line, but are we sort of okay with legal fees? That's one that sort of goes out of whack every once in a while, and the things with the planning board sometimes drive it. Are things looking okay there?
We adjusted that budget a few years ago to the level that it's at now, and we haven't overextended it to date. So it seems like it's running, we're usually under.
Still feels about okay.
Some years we're closer than others, but.
Okay, good. All righty, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll come in and go over it.
That's great.
I don't see Amy here.
Amy's wasn't gonna be able to be
Okay.
here.
Oh,
We missed that entire presentation?
We sent you a text saying we're starting.
Shut my phone off that meeting.
Back on schedule.
It's amazing how that works.
Looking for any
Join meeting.
So the Conservation Commission isn't looking for any matching requests, they're just looking to staff the existing office the way it is. So Amy, works as the conservation coordinator. Basically, this includes any step and cost of living. She's at 25 hours a week, and that seems to, she's been able to manage her workload. We adjusted it a little bit last year because there's a lot of stuff going on. But she seems to be running on target this time.
Building department? Oh, yeah, right?
Caught up right on time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love it when a plan comes together.
We still haven't done the town clerk yet. We kicked that can down.
That's right, that's true.
You were not on. You were not on.
I got us back.
Historic preservation and chill. All right.
Okay, hi. Thank you for coming in. Which would you like to go?
Start with building.
Okay.
So we're asking for nothing additional.
And we're reading nothing.
Wow, that was easy.
Have a bag of chips.
Absolutely.
We're still busy. Our numbers are a little bit lower than last year, income-wise. The past 2 years, we had pretty big numbers because of all the buildings at the point. So we've steadied a little bit, but we're still on track to do about 500 permits this year. And residential new construction is still pretty steady. There's 4 ongoing subdivisions. And commercial is pretty level.
It's still going to be vibrant. It's just not all going to be located here at the point. We have other areas on Taylor Street, and Beaver's still moving along. We have We have Workers Credit Union that's looking to start up over here. So we have, this year is going to still be vibrant, I think, as far as commercial. And residential just keeps going.
Now, you haven't gotten involved in the hotel at the point yet, or?
Yeah, just
you're
one.
not yet?
That's all I did.
Okay.
So basically, our expenses are the same. We just sort of redistributed the categories to be more in line with what we use the expenses for. Last year, we had a change in my position going to all 40 hours of building
Yep.
department hours, and now we have the shared admin between the three departments, Board of Health, ZBA, and building. But other than that, everything is just step increases as far as the changes in our budget. Okay? Any questions? Okay, so,
Oh, excuse me, again, a side question. The issues that Fields is having with the quote age-appropriate housing, is that still tied up with the planning board, or is that, okay, so that's still there?
Yep.
those haven't come to us yet.
We have two of those, actually. We have also Mr. Kennard's project up on Spec Pond Road, and I believe that's moving forward.
Okay, okay, good. I'll Crooked Lane.
Yep.
As it's being called.
Going forward as high density or
As
non?
senior housing,
Senior.
the way it was proposed at town meeting. I mean, it's not, we'll just leave it at that.
We haven't gotten any
Roland, well
permits yet. And, okay, so Board of Health, basically, we're not asking for anything there. All the expenses are the same, just basic office expenses, training expenses, advertising for regulation changes. We now have the new admin in there, so that's 18 hours are appropriated out of this budget for her. And then the assessments,
Shelley was able to get the actual assessments, which
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate. Usually they don't notify me until after we've set our budget, and then I'm scrambling to try and get these adjustments. So I will probably park these in the level funded budget because it is the assessment that we're going to pay for that.
What is Elliott Clinic? I have no idea.
It's a mental health assessment,
Okay.
so it's run through the LA Clinic, so they provide some services to the community for that.
And the animal inspection on here, we talk about that? That number went down.
so that number was larger because she hadn't been.
She hadn't billed us for the previous year, so I encumbered it forward.
Last
so,
year.
Yes. So it's really, the amount that you see there requested is the amount that should be budgeted.
So that's all for Board of Health. Don't want anything there. And ZBA is basically the same expenses, just again for office supplies, postage for legal notices, money for training for the board members, and then the shared admin gets 4 hours out of the ZBA budget. I will note that the numbers, the income side of ZBA is going up because we've been doing more zoning enforcement, so more zoning enforcement means more cases going before the board, more income. So those numbers are already this fiscal year were above what we were all of last fiscal year, so.
So, again, a similar question on legal, and I know it doesn't flow through that budget, but zoning enforcement oftentimes spurs legal cases. You're not seeing, and I assume the selectmen would be in that loop. I mean, you guys do the legal budget.
So right now we
So
have,
Are we seeing an influx of that, or is it not so much?
Anthony, I wouldn't say so much.
More
right?
cases?
No.
No, right now we have about,
We might be spending more legal this year just on stuff like the town administrative process, the sewer, but not so much litigation or anything.
Okay.
we have two that may possibly end up, we had talked with Chris Heap about it because we had given them the enforcement letter. They didn't appeal, and then we've been doing the ticketing process for one of them for several months, and they're just not responding. And then another one paid the ticket, but then didn't do anything, so we started ticketing them again. So we've talked to Chris about where to go from here. So those two may possibly end up in court, but most of the other ones
not a
are,
big
we're
spike.
pretty much able to resolve either before it even goes to the ZBA or through the ZBA process, so.
They didn't get relief from the CBA, so they were going to appeal.
Well, the two that are would possibly be pending court cases, they've never appealed our letters, and so now their timeline has passed, and we just keep ticketing them and they just don't respond, so.
I would actually welcome them to go before the board, and I wouldn't
Get a
oppose
decision.
it.
Right.
They simply are not responding at all.
That's the course of action that they have available to them.
Right.
Right. So, okay.
Good. All right. Any other questions or comments or? Great.
Okay, we'll continue to make money.
All right.
We'll have $600,000 hopefully.
Fred.
Yep.
No, no, you should get that, thank you. If I can, it's just, Chief Panad would mention a grant for $6,000 to fund Project Alert. We just actually got notification that we were awarded that grant, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Congratulations.
Tell him he gets a bag of chips too.
Take a bag of chips, sure. We'll leave one for him.
You got it notified on a Saturday, you got the grant?
Yeah.
Your tax dollars at work?
Massachusetts government is open.
Right.
Okay.
They want to collect those.
Fred, you're ahead of schedule.
Yeah, you want to slow it down? What's up, Chris?
That can be arranged.
Get them early. Bring back the screws or something.
Raise your right hand, please.
Chris, you weren't here, but we decided we're going to increase your field work, but we're going to cut the field work budget. Sorry.
Sounds about right.
You work in the school department now.
Work for
More work, less pay.
Well, don't put in their sidewalks until we give you money to. cut
Well, you gotta give me the
fields.
money for the sidewalks first, so.
Yeah, it's easy.
Okay, you wanna start? So, I mean, we're basically pretty similar to last year. Obviously, some of the salaries and everything went up due to contract negotiations. Let's start. Does everybody's look like this, the front page? I guess we can just go through it like that. Yeah, so for level service, we had to go up a little bit on dues and subscriptions. Everybody needs CEUs, continuing education units, and those are getting rather expensive. So we had to go up a little bit on that. Professional services, the different licenses, that's all going up as well, so we've had to go up on those. We did a little bit different. We broke it out, you'll see, under technology supplies and then uniforms. Last year, that was all lumped together. We've split those out. The $10,954 is now just for uniforms. That's contractually obligated. And then the $5,000 is for different licenses, AutoCADs, C-Click Fix, things like that. So, we can go into the parks.
Before you go into parks, Chris,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because I'm trying to think of what this advertising line item would be used for. What do you advertise for?
Bid documents.
Oh, bid documents, okay.
So everything we bid out, we have to advertise in multiple newspapers and Central Register.
Thanks.
It's amazingly more expensive than you would think to advertise in a newspaper, so.
Especially when you read them anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Subscribe to the library.
And then, so we go down through the parks. You're gonna see in the first one, the maintenance supplies. All we did is we broke out the $37,000 that was under maintenance services, broke $27,000 into supplies and then $10,000 into services. It's the same number, it's better for me to track it that way.
Labor versus materials is what you're.
Basically, yeah. The wages went up, but that's due to step increases. The longevity, what we did is, we brought it from last year, it was still under highway. We brought it down into parks this year, just to get better tracking. We've also asked, or we need the other 10,000, that's for the seasonal help that we get every year. And then the uniform allowance, we also brought that down under parks, away from highway.
What is longevity?
It's a dollar number that you get.
Contractual.
Contractual, yeah, it's townwide.
Longer you hear
You hear over a certain number of years, you get.
Okay, got it.
Bag of chips and, yeah, that's it.
And a cookie, like a steak.
Yeah, not to spend a lot of time on it, but why is that just not part of the salary number?
You're wrong.
It's budgeted, it's always been budgeted separately, just for tracking purposes, so you can see what it is, because somebody 10 years ago asked, what's the longevity amount? Having it buried into salary, it wasn't as
I
transparent.
don't know why it would be relevant. I mean, just what somebody meant, anyway. Makes no sense to me.
Is it just a way of paying someone at the same grade and step a little bit more
It's a
because they've been here
stipend.
for
It's-
longer?
So it's like a
actually a
stipend, so you have to
stipend.
keep it separate, yeah. Same thing.
Okay, so,
Welcome to the world of contracts. That's great.
Municipal government.
within roadway, everything is the same. You know, obviously, we'll work with what we got. So whatever we get, we will spend appropriately. I'd like more, but obviously, you know, level service I can do with what I have. It just might be a little bit less that we can get done this year.
What's the difference in roadway supplies there, Chris? You said everything's the same.
Yeah, that 85,000, that is, if I had to guess, Bonnie, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was what we had left over last year, and we rolled it in, that's why it
Yes.
looks like it's.
It's exactly that.
So it was, last year it was budgeted at 40, but we, you know, for whatever reason, we had an extra 45,000, we were able to roll in this year.
Chris, before you go on, I think Betsy had something, I had a question as well. So I
Okay.
have to carry it.
So the repairs number, so this is the operating, but as part of the capital though, we have a plan where it goes up every year, is that correct?
Yes, so
For
that.
the roads?
That will be increased.
Okay.
It's already increased by 1%.
Okay.
So I don't know why I didn't pick that up here.
So
It's actually 730.
Yeah.
certainly appreciate the fact that you work with the static number that we give you, and that's where you go out and you maximize that, and we very much appreciate that. The residents appreciate it as well, and it's noticed. If we decided we wanted to implement, we want X number of feet of sidewalk every year, and, you know, we want to increase the amount of sidewalk we have, put some sort of program in place. Is that something that you have on a long-range plan, like a dream, like a mission-type budget that you would like to incorporate? Some plans, I mean, again, appreciate the fact that you say, I was told I could have $200,000, I'll take that $200,000, I'll make it work as much as I can, but.
So the answer is, I don't right now, because we have a hard enough time maintaining the sidewalks we have, as far as having to reconstruct them. You know, Russell Street's a great example. I don't have the money to build new. My attitude is, why should we build new when we can't even maintain the ones we got? If we had, I can put in there for a request for an increase of a certain dollar number to figure out what makes sense. I can also use this, you know, if the board wants to go that direction, we could also, I can take a chunk of this money away from roads and dedicate it towards sidewalks. It's. Does that answer?
So a lot of the goals that we have, the master plan has, is to make Littleton more walkable and more pedestrian and bicycle accessible, and there's grants available for some of that, and we've got a couple of different committees that are working on these types of things. So if we're just gonna keep doing the same thing we've always done, we're gonna get the same results. So if we truly do wanna meet our goals, as well as the goals of the community as a whole, we need to start looking at those numbers and incorporating those numbers into your budget. And we'll have to take into consideration what those maintenance costs would be for you,
Yep.
and what those impacts would be.
Another person
Growth
to
is
maintain it,
expected.
right? We're talking
Right.
maintenance and everything else.
So I, again, very much appreciate you saying, I know this is the number that you guys you're gonna give me, but I'd like to see us moving towards, this is what we need.
Yeah, absolutely, I can do that.
And we may say, that's great, but this year it is gonna be 200 again. But if we know that for another $50,000 we can get X,
Right.
I think it would be,
Yeah.
we start answering what we're charged with doing, and, you know, it's-
Absolutely, no, that's not a problem, I can do that. What we can do is I can incorporate that as part of the meeting, usually at the board meeting around March, when I bring the road maintenance plan, I can
just so you'll have an idea moving forward, and then we can start into that for the next.
Just to follow up on one piece of what Chuck just said, it's helpful to know what the dollar amount benchmarks are. For X amount of dollars, you can do the following things. Then we can start doing our own, thinking too,
Yeah, absolutely.
Strange as that may sound.
I can do it at price per foot too on sidewalks, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Gives you a good idea of how much.
We were talking about the high school parking lot earlier, and I think you, at one point in time, I think you came up with a number where it averages X number of dollars per 9x18 parking space, and you can kind of figure out, that's including the driveway and the roadway between and all that kind of stuff. So I know that you have the ability to do that, and it'd be kind of nice for us to.
Yeah, I mean, sidewalks is an easy one, it's about $100 a foot. So, however many feet you want to get for $100.
But there is a point where you're gonna hit where you maintain the sidewalks as well. Is that $100 a foot with granite curb?
Oh, absolutely. I would never recommend doing sidewalk in town without that.
Okay.
It just doesn't last.
Agreed.
So Chris, just to build on that, what is the impact of the residential growth having on your department?
Well, it's going to start having a major effect. In the next year, we're gonna have, 4 or 5 subdivisions come online as public ways.
We'll accept them.
Accepted public ways, which means we're gonna end up having to, we're gonna be almost 4 or 5 miles of road. That's another plot route, which means that's 2 more staff or 2 more contractors. We end up having to borderline putting on another sanding route, not to mention the cost of reconstructing those roads when they do fail. If some of them have parks in them, which a couple of them do, we have to mow them. That's another. We have a hard time maintaining the fields and the parks we do now. So yes, it's gonna be, in the next year to 18 months, it's gonna be a huge impact for us.
And is that worked into these figures?
Not into this budget, because
Okay.
by the time those come online,
That'll be-
we will end up having to roll them in for the next budget season,
Okay.
budget cycle. So, and it's really comes down to, I can put in the request for staff and funding. If we don't fill the staff position, we can always subcontract them out. There's a couple different options that we can go with as far as doing it. But, if we start line painting, that's more line painting on some of these roads, crosswalks, stop signs. People like to hit stop signs, they think it's a target, I think.
I think Cindy brings up a good point. If, in fact, we have incremental costs associated with these developments coming online and being accepted, maybe we should look at, from a financial policy standpoint, estimate what those incremental costs are and deduct from the tax revenue that comes in from the developments, put it towards the infrastructure cost, and only let what's left over from that go into the operating budget. Rather than just letting it all go into the operating budget, get it totally eaten up, and then he's saying, I need more help, and we're saying, well, we don't have any money. I mean, it may be, now you've got a bunch of new developments coming in, and it may say that we need one more highway guy. I don't know whether it does or not, but, if it's 5 more miles of road, say that you need, another $5,000 worth of contract plowing, or this or that, or something else, and let the revenue from those developments pay that cost.
And, I think we can work with the planning board too, to try to put some sort of funding in, like you do with the bonding and, I don't know, the whole.
Yeah, we've gone a long way with the planning board. Prior to me coming on board, we were allowing them to install certain drainage infrastructure that we physically cannot maintain. We don't have the equipment, manpower. So I've been able to push pretty hard to get that style of infrastructure out of this town, so that way we can actually maintain the things we have. You're taking a development and you physically can't maintain the stuff, it's silly.
That's useless, right?
So we've been able to slowly work towards that, but, we do have some of that infrastructure that we might have to contract $20,000-$30,000 just to have a company come in and clean the drainage infrastructure
Right.
out.
But, just like theoretically, there may be another hotel coming in town. We know it's coming. or once it gets permitted to come, you can estimate what the revenue would be from that. Is that, it's an ongoing source of revenue that maybe we could dedicate to something, to some department, to some activity, instead of just letting it be part of the ever-rising balloon.
I think there are a number of possible solutions, and not necessarily the place to argue them, but I think it involves in some way the building department for the fees that
Yeah,
they
no,
charge to
yeah.
developers, the planning board that can impose certain fees, and I'm sure that you've got some experience that you could probably make some recommendations as well.
Absolutely.
But just to try to mitigate some of those
Right.
increased costs.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Snow and ice, we leave the same, 200,000, so that's this year we might be under it, but who knows? Transfer station,
We're screwed now.
yeah, I know.
Just jinxed us.
Not me.
Transfer station is, recycling expenses went up. Obviously, we've had this discussion regarding where we have to haul recycling through. And then, what's this one? The transfer station? Okay, so, we were able to save on tipping fees. We have a new contract with Waste Management that we haul it to Waste Management facility, so we're able to save some money there, so that was nice. And then the waste hauling obviously went down as well, so we work as hard as we can on those contracts to try to get them as reasonable as we can, so. Also, this is the mission, okay. Yeah, and then so on the mission budget,
Excuse me, just a nit point, we don't have a subtotal, oh, we do, I'm sorry, subtotals are first, rather than last. All right, yeah, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I don't understand. So the mission budget, we can kind of go through, let's see. Oh, yeah, so we've asked for another, parks staff. We're trying to stay in line with the study that was done a couple years before I got here. So we're asking again this year for that staff increase.
Based on industry standards and study.
Yeah, the study that was done, I think it was it was before me, 2013 maybe. I know we did ask for two, we got one of those staff increases 2 years ago, and we're just asking for the second one to bring us up to the industry standard. And then so some of the other requests in here were based on that, uniform allowances and things like that. But we get down into parks and we have the original 37,000 that we get, I've asked for an increase to 75,000 for maintenance services and 50,000 for supplies. Based on the needs assessment of the fields, we can spend that in.
So this incorporates some of, we weren't here earlier, but what the Park and Rec was in asking for?
So basically, what this is, that study that was done, I believe, last year, that Gail came up with, I think it was a couple $100,000. I took their number and I'm able to, by doing some work in-house, we can trim that number way down to 125,000. That allows me to do everything that they think we should do with my staff and contracting things out, slice seeding, top dressing, stuff like that. If we don't get it, we'll just continue the same fertilizing, basically, and slice seeding when we can. Obviously, it's not as much or not as many fields as we would like, but.
Is Park and Rec aware of this? Just listed.
Yeah, the 40,000 that they're asked that Park and Rec, that is basically the baseline. That's
Okay.
what we need to, we use 37,000, I use 37,000.
But it didn't sound like she was aware that you were asking for it in your budget.
Mike Prue mentioned it. He said
He
it
did?
doesn't
Okay.
matter where it shows up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need to call it the 40, I think he asked for 40. And then, so in line painting, we are, the Federal Highway Administration, I know the town does single yellow lines. Federal Highway Administration does not acknowledge that as an accepted practice. It has to be double yellow line. I've gotten out of the habit of us doing single yellow line. I don't know if you noticed, we've started doing much more double yellow lines this year. Because of that, obviously, the cost goes up.
Doubles.
No, it's actually not quite double, but
Twice as much material.
it is twice as much material. But we've also started to do fog lines more. per a request or collaboration with the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, who kind of like to establish that side. We've kind of been trying to work with them and fog line more often.
So is that the white line on the right?
Yes.
Is that what you
Yes,
call
I'm
fog
sorry.
line?
Yes, the white line, excuse me.
I noticed them on Foster Street. I wonder why they were there.
Yeah, it was
It
a
used to be.
request to try to slow the speed down, and we were able to narrow the lanes up, and then it actually establishes a kind of an illusion of a bike lane for them. They feel safer. But so we've been starting to do that more often, so the cost is going up. So we're asking for a little bit of increase there.
Is that enough, though?
It is, because what I do is on the roads we repave, I roll the line painting into the repaving project, so I'm not using this line item to pay for all the line painting on the new pavement. And then we're asking for 20,000 increase in professional services. That's, just basically, we do with what we got with the 12.8, but I could always do more with the 20. We're starting to get into some drain line infrastructure we had to do some cleaning on last year. We don't have the equipment, so we have to contract it out. I'd like to start a program to start cleaning more of our drainage infrastructure. Roots get into it, sand build up, things like that, leaves. I mean, we catch basin and clean, but we can't actually clean the lines.
How much of that is going to be required by our MS4 program?
MS4 only requires us to clean our catch basins.
Okay.
And because we don't sand anymore, we can clean our catch basins once a year, the whole town. So this is just preventive maintenance I would like to start doing. And then the police details, police just renegotiated the contracts, and I believe they went up $1 on the details, so everything's, we can only do so much with the 15,000 that we have. Once we run out of money, we theoretically can't work in the road, and we tend to get some pushback from the police department. So we're just asking for an increase to be able to cover that, so we can keep working in the road. Kind of silly not having a DPW be able to work in the roads, but. And then, then the capital. So, the capital, I tried to break it out this year a little bit into parks.
Sorry, before we go into capital, can I just ask?
sorry. Yeah.
So you've got all this in the mission here and all these different line items. So how do you envision that going forward? Somebody says, well, okay, so you want whatever the total is, because we're not going to get that. We give you an extra 40,000. And then you kind of go through and figure out where, because these lines kind of go together, right? A lot of these things, is that?
Well, the parks budget is separate, so if you decide the 40,000 needs to go into parks, that's a separate budget.
I see.
If it goes into roadway, that's an isolated budget, so they can't transfer
Okay.
between them that way, but.
But it can, if you put it into roadway, I could use some of it for line painting, some of it for police services, some of it supply. That's kind of a lump sum.
So it counts.
Kind of like, you almost need like a total by each one of those groups so you can really see. But, okay, thank you. Capital.
Okay, so what I tried to do this year is break up the capital a little bit between highway and parks, because I was having a hard time. A lawnmower is very important to parks, but not important to highway, and trucks aren't important, vice versa. So 20,000 at the beginning, that's the major vehicle repairs you give us every year, so that's the same. We are asking to replace another one of the big dump trucks again for $251,000. This is one of the 6 that we have. This is actually to be the second of the 6 that we have to replace. We're asking to replace a 1-ton dump truck with a new F550 with the plow and sander.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Of the second of the 6, can we anticipate that this is going to be on a regular cycle?
Correct.
So next year there'll be another 251 or more?
Correct.
And then once last year's truck, when can we expect, 20 years later, that we're going to need to get back in the cycle again? Or?
Well, these ones are 1992s.
Okay.
So what's that, 36, 26 years, 25? Yeah. So that's what, we're buying the same style truck, the same brand, Mack, and they're incredibly good.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of money maintaining them. We'll go through a refurbish in about 15 years and redo the whole thing. So that should get us another 10, 12 years after that. So I don't expect to have to come back for another 25 years.
But the next few years, we're going to be.
Oh, the next few years, yeah, it'll be every
Cleaning
single
up the
time.
fleet.
Correct. We're actually toying with
Another
the
bag of chips.
we're toying with the idea of not buying as bigger trucks because the real reason we had these big trucks is because when you had to sand, this truck would take 3 or 4 loads to sand the town. And we can do it now in half of a load, so there's no reason to have these big, massive trucks. We do need a few big trucks, but we don't need 6 of them. So what we're gonna start test driving some other trucks, so maybe after the 3rd truck, we can actually downsize our trucks, which could save the town about $100,000 a truck. It'll still get us the same, it'll get us to, from A to B, just be cheaper. So, but we don't wanna sacrifice, you know, a truck that can go 25 years. If the truck we think is only gonna get 10, 12 years, then it's not worth it for us to do that, so. So the 2004 one-ton dump truck, that's actually a Parks truck, but we use it for plowing, and so we're looking to replace that with a new F-550. It'll be exactly the same as the F-550 we currently have, we just bought last year. It'll have a sander in the back end of plow.
Any reason why you're going from a 1-ton to a 550?
The one-ton can't hold the weight of the sander and the sand and salt in it. So right now, with the plow on, the salt, and a full load in the 550, it is literally right at the GVW line. A 350 won't be able to handle that weight. We've gone away from diesels because the cost was $11,000 more, but we don't ever get that back in a return on it, so we only drive around town anyways, and the cost. So we've gotten away from that to save us some money, but we've had to increase the size of the truck. The 2011 Chevy 2500, that is the general foreman's truck. We are asking to replace that. It's a 2011, but it's starting to get some electrical issues. Front end's starting to fall apart. Body's getting pretty beat up. It gets used a lot. It's got almost 80,000 miles, I think, on it, and it never leaves town. So you can imagine how much it gets driven. So. We're looking at changing those from Chevys to F-350, and the biggest reason for that is the Chevy one-ton cannot hold the municipal grade Fisher plow, so the Ford F-350 can, and by us not buying that municipal grade plow, we've had to send them out to get replaced because they get bent. So we're trying to buy the truck that can handle the more heavy-duty plow. So the big one on here is the $800,000 for the 4,000 square foot addition off the back of our building. This is to compensate for the building that we lost on Wickham Ave. What I did is to get this number, it's about $200 a square foot. I took the cost of the light department's addition out back. Theirs was about $350 a square foot. Took out a whole bunch of bells and whistles that we don't need and got us down to the $200 per square foot number. We can do a lot of the work, the site work on the property to save us a bunch of money, so. But this will serve our needs for the foreseeable future.
And this is basically storage?
We're actually gonna move the mechanics out there. So what happens is the mechanics are right next to our office, and the mechanics are incredibly loud, stinky, smelly. So we're gonna move them.
Keep you guys awake.
Yeah, that's true. Or put us to sleep in the trucks. So we're gonna move 2 of them out there, and then the other 2 bays will be for storage, and then now we'll gain parking and storage in the 2 bays that are directly next to our office.
Do we have a chance the light department to out of that cost?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say no.
They don't make any money.
It's gonna be totally on our
should have a
building, not on
conversation.
their building, so.
It's our part of the building.
Yeah, but it's caused by, moving out of property that they.
And they are accommodating us by allowing us to use their overhang that they just built until such time as there is another solution.
I'm not sure that's how they would
That's
phrase
not
it.
how, yeah.
That's how we said it on the camera. So,
The way I was told was we have until the fiscal year, is what.
that's all we agreed upon. So that's on.
I know, I understand that, I'm gonna expect that Nick is gonna come knocking on my door July 1st and ask when my stuff's leaving.
Let them keep knocking.
Yeah, send them our way.
I'm just letting you know, that's why this is in here for that cost, is that you know.
What about the space we used to rent for the fire department? 'Cause that was relatively reasonable, wasn't it? Are they
wanted
using
them
it
out of there
now?
as soon as they could get them out of
They
there.
want it back?
Yeah, they're full built up over there.
But to that point, is there other lease space available around town? I mean, if this is mostly, even if it was the mechanics, I mean, if the mechanics were off-site, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Is there, space available for less than 30 or 40,000.
Tire barn, the tire barn down on the
Well, there you
exit
go.
line.
There you
How
go.
about Partly Lumber?
Yeah, I don't know, it's just something to look at.
Tell the LCTV that we're gonna put in an auto shop as part of the library. Hands-on educational experience.
Yeah,
VFW night.
Teach a shop.
you're amazed how much stuff we have. It's pretty ridiculous. And so the next is the 650,000 for the sidewalks and the curb and at the high school. This is a two-phased approach. It really is over $1 million. But the 650 will allow us to do up by the building. What we don't want to do is I don't want to do the sidewalk work before the sewer. If when the sewer goes through, I don't want to have to redo the sewer twice. So this is the upper part where the sewer won't be going, so we can do that for 650,000. That'll basically get us all the sidewalks and all the curb around at the top. Coming down the road about halfway. And then the others call it 650.
So you have the school,
Can we see this number on one of the other budgets?
Mike put it on the school department budget, but referenced it would be in
Only to
PSC.
do,
I know.
That was to do everything. But yeah.
Yeah, but it's not
1.6.
1 point.
Yeah,
I can do it for 1.2.
This 6, all right?
Oh, yeah.
That was sidewalks.
So it won't be-
Upper, lower, and all the roads.
All the roads, all the new parking lots, new road, new everything.
You saved us
Can you help the school department do the budget?
Just for today.
Well, I was told to put it in mine, or else I wouldn't have. My capital wouldn't look so daunting if it wasn't there. Yes, that's right. Okay, and then, so the next one, this is where I broke it out. So the stuff below this is the parks. So we've asked for the same dollar number, 20,000 for we do for capital for major equipment repair. We're asking for the same 20,000 for this. Now, this I would use to reconstruct and repair certain fields, call it one a year, do like a capital plan. So the high school baseball field right now really needs to have all new edging redone, all new sod, cut out the old infield mix, put in all new. So this is what I would use to do those kind of things. Major repairs to fields, not the maintenance stuff. And, sorry. And then below that, we have a $25,000 replacement of our zero-turn mower. It's a 2001. We use it for parts, but we use it. It just never always functions correctly, so. And then the next one we're asking to replace is our 97 Jacobson. That's the big wide mower, we call it the Batwing, because the mower deck's flipped up. That one, with the replacement, allows us to be able, we can mow all the sports fields in about half the time. Right now, the 97 Jacobson's broke down more than it's not. So we end up getting behind, and then we have to bag the fields because the grass is too long, and it's a snowball effect. With that replacement, we would not have to bag it, but we could mow it more than once a week. So I think that's everything. Maybe I have
Well, how would that, if you got that mower, would that impact staff at all? Mowing the grass?
No, because what we do is actually are able to not use, so right now we have 3 small mowers, and the Jacobson is the 4th, it's a big one. The 2001, we pretty much, it's spare, so to speak. By replacing the 2001 would be our 2019. The next newest one, I think, the next oldest one is a 2004. We would then use that as the spare. And now we would have one staff run the wide mower, the Batwing, and then 2 would run the zero turns. So then if one of the zero turns broke, they would move into the replacement, the backup mower.
There's no efficiencies gained by getting this.
The big one?
Yeah.
By the big one, we would be able to mow all the fields more frequently.
It's just frequency.
And more
it's not-
quickly.
it's
And more
not,
quickly, yeah. Right now, what happens is, if we use just the 3 small ones, they have to bag it every time. And I don't know, the high school field, how it takes about half of a pass to be full. Then they have to drive all the way past the softball field, dump it, drive all the way back and start again. So it takes hours and hours. The Batwing doesn't pick it up, but because it goes so fast, we're mowing the equivalent of 4 small mowers at a pass. So he can do all the fields in half the time. And so if the grass doesn't get as long, we don't have to bag it.
So there's no staffing efficiencies? by
Because
doing
you're
this?
mowing twice as much, but You see what I'm saying? So it's the same amount of time, you're just mowing it more often instead of bagging it.
Yeah.
That's all. So the time is fun.
What happens, in the summertime, it's not as bad, because obviously the grass slows down. It's the spring when we need to be out there. We've even tried to do it without bagging it, but what happens is it all clumps up. The sports organizations hate it. Then when we line paint, it just gets really bad.
Anything else?
I have a good story to tell. That one snowstorm we had this year, bad snowstorm we had, I was in Boston that night for a concert, and it was snowing like crazy. Coming home, Mass Pike was terrible, 128 was terrible, Route 2 was awful. I got off the road in Littleton, it was fine. I was like, I'm home, this is awesome, so congratulations.
I got a different story.
Yeah,
but-
but that's good. We don't even.
You got here just late enough. Before that, ours were just as bad.
Everybody a couple.
Everybody
Yeah,
was
the type of
bad.
storm it was. Just a quick question, relative to the build-out, the expansion, are you looking at something like from Center Construction, one of the steel buildings, that kind of?
It'll be American Steel, the exact same building we have, we would do it, it would be the same thing. So it's a clear span.
This will help those discussions that we had with possibly doing all vehicle maintenance for the whole town. on
Yes,
those garages, too. So
yes, the
it's a start to
anticipation
that,
would
yeah.
be for that, to be able to have multiple mechanics out there. And
Correct.
that's another reason why to move the mechanics farther away.
Right.
Have less equipment right up against the
So
building.
would you need additional equipment, accoutrement, inside of the building to, like lifts?
He likes that word.
Accommodate.
That, my number reflects that.
Does.
Not for mechanics worth of stuff, but yeah, a lot of our mechanic stuff we can move, so we have 2 lifts now, we bring it out back.
Okay, we do it.
Yeah. Good. You wanna go to cemetery
Okay,
next?
cemetery, yeah.
I'm gonna put a pin.
I'll stay here because I help them do cemetery too.
I appreciate it very much.
I thought you were going to the whiteboard, I was like, wow.
It's impressive.
It won't be
Mark
anywhere
down where
near
your
as long
plot
as
is.
that, but, I still might as well sit down.
Okay, so the cemetery is really simple. Pretty much kept everything the same for 2020. You're going to see staffing increase. That's contractually obligated for step raises. The second page is with the mission budget. So what we're requesting this year is a summer intern to help with mowing, weed whacking. What's that? That's in the fall. And he goes back to school by then.
Don't interns work for free?
I wish. It's not my interns.
Interns in what? What are they
Well,
studying
seasonal
that
help.
they're
It's
in?
not- it's not an-
I guess it's technically summer help, yeah.
Okay.
It's summer, it's seasonal help.
Okay.
Yeah, interns are, it becomes a, yeah, you're right, it's summer, it's seasonal help. So we're asking for $10,000 for that, that's the same number that I carried for my summer help, so. And then the capital, we are requesting the replacement for the Toro mower. We're asking to replace this in 1995, so it's fairly old. And then they're running into storage issues down there as well. So the easiest solution for us right now is to get a, like an overseas container. And what we can do is we can put the summer stuff in there in the winter, which will help free up some space in the garage, and that's $4,500.
Buy it or lease it?
Buy it. It's only a 20-footer, it's not a huge one, because we don't actually have a lot of space down back to put one. So we'd be looking to buy a 20-footer.
Just from an aesthetic standpoint, is that, I mean, it would cost you 4 times that probably to build a shed that would be able to accommodate the same.
Yes, and where we would put it, short of you driving around the back of that building to get down to the maintenance area, you'd never know it was there.
So we'd have to put money in there to put like some sort of fence up or
No,
something.
no, we would tuck it down right around the back, you know, with the back garages and stuff, so. And just so everybody does know, we got the master plan money last year, we are almost finished with the master plan for the cemetery. Realistically, next year, we would be looking to come back for design and construction funding of phase 1 of that master plan, because we're starting to fill up pretty quick up there, so we're gonna run out of space.
We're dying to get in there.
Time to get in.
Old people are-
That's it, that's it. So that's it, cemetery's easy, I don't know if you have any good questions.
Building's in good shape now? Building's okay now?
Grab a
We're
sandwich.
having trouble with that for a while.
Yeah, no, we're doing a few things, it's not falling down, so. We have a couple things we have to do, but they're small things that we can do with the in-house staff and the existing budget that we have.
Good. Good answer.
Crematorium going?
What's that?
When's the crematorium going?
We should revisit that at some point.
And we saw his design.
Too, Paul. I agree.
Well, what we can do is, as part of the, when we get the master plan, the map for it, then we can
Show it.
sit down and look and, you know.
The demand for that is increasing. In Massachusetts, it's something like 70% right now. And only cemeteries can do it. You can't have a private business at it.
Oh,
So-
municipal cemeteries, oh, cemeteries.
Any cemetery can be church-owned or even private-owned, although there's very few privately owned ones, but it has to have 35 acres, which we now have with the Hartwell land. So we'd be essentially shooting fish in a barrel.
We don't need to, based on the master plan right now,
Resurface that ball field
we have
every
like
10 years.
100 years of space at that facility, so.
How big's the barrel?
We got enough for a while.
I might make it.
For a field run. You don't need it for 100 years.
No turf.
All righty, IT.
I'm covering IT for Nancy. Nancy's got an illness in the family, so she had to go down to Connecticut for a few days. Her budget's fairly easy to go through. She's not looking for any capital, and she's not looking for any program increases. She's just looking to maintain what she has.
Down.
Sorry. Just seconded, I thought that was a motion.
She gets a bag of chips.
You might remember she did have an additional staff person added last year. That's been a huge relief. She wanted to relay to her, to the board for supporting it, but she's, much better able to manage her time. I don't see her sending emails, during the weekends and evening hours, and it's helped a lot with the day-to-day operations. I did give you a breakdown of all of the licensing, because, that's a big number to look at for the software and systems contracts. So it just gives you an idea of, what we're paying for different applications that we use and what applications we're actually running. So she basically covers all of the application needs for all of the town departments, whether it's mine or public safety or highways.
I thought Chris, just going off the first one, I thought Chris had C-Click Fix in his.
Yeah, I took it out.
Oh.
I took the dollar figure out.
Oh.
I saw it. Good catch, though. Good catch. I did. I was like, nope.
We're paying attention, folks.
Yeah, no, I did. I saw that, and I went, no, that's in Nancy. You can have that. But yeah, so his, C-Click Fix, the AutoCAD is in there. Patriots, which is for our assessor's office for the, property management. The property record cards, the assessor's tax maps, our warrant signing process DocuSign that you get, the Board of Selectmen get every week. The big ones are, Munis. I believe the other ones are the police and fire IMCFD is IMC, which is their public safety software management service. But it's basically, this incorporates everything to run the town.
So what are the savings? What aren't we doing now that we had to pay for last year?
So last year, the soft right tax and payroll was closer to 50,000. So it's down to 26,000 and it's gone after that. So we've already recognized some savings
So
there.
this is because of Munis?
Yes,
You're talking about things.
as we offload, those applications, it goes down. Everything else, I would say that, this is not gonna go away. This is only gonna get more robust as we go forward. It's just the way things are going. And the other thing that she does budget for is all of the consumables on the copy machines, all the toner, all of the, everything. And the leasing portion of it. So that's pretty much it.
And this is town side, it's not the schools.
No, this is just towns. Although I would say some of it is schools. Munis's covers the schools, and, you know, she pays for it out of her budget,
The supplies budget is just the town.
just the town's.
Bonnie, not that I expect you to be able to answer this, but Nancy, here, I'd want to know, is there something that, she's done a lot with a little for a long time, is there something that she, kind of the same question I asked Chris, would need or would help her to be able to do her job more efficiently, more effectively?
Yeah,
Maybe just
I
carry
will,
that
I
back
will
to her.
relay that to her. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. You know, I think the website management is a big piece that, while she doesn't manage it, she gets all the questions about how to manage it. So I think at some point, you know, a lot of communities that are larger have an actual individual that manages the website. Right now, it's very decentralized, so it's kind of inconsistent in what you find on different pages because of that.
Just did not notice something, and
I'll ask her, though.
she does a lot with a little, and if there's something that she needs.
Yeah.
But it was nice that she recognized that the.
You doing Clean Lakes?
To mention that
Yes.
the help that she got last year really had made a
It is.
difference.
And I don't know if you've
Appreciate
met
that,
Tom,
Great
he's
guy.
going through town hall, but he's a really good guy.
Unlike the other guys in town hall.
Right.
Okay.
Like the New Year's.
Yeah.
We just piss them all
That was
off.
like that coffee machine budget.
That's great. I'm gonna roll that one back.
I can't go with that. No.
When the doors closed and the lights
Right,
off.
yeah. Hi, I'm retired. Oh, my God.
Next tab is Clean Lakes.
Irish Whisper.
Yeah, I had
Clean
invited,
Lakes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I had invited the water department to go through this, but I don't see anybody here. So,
You didn't come last year either.
I invite them, but.
It's really far. for them to drive.
So this Clean Lakes is a placeholder budget. I haven't received the actual request from Corey. This is the amount that he requested last year and the year before. So I'm fairly confident that this will be the amount. It's neutral because it's generated from budget offset from the cell tower funds for Spec Pond. So there's no impact to the operating budget. Typically, they'll use this for projects around the lakes area, you know, signage or improvements or any engineering studies that might need to be done. But they present their budget once they meet with the Clean Lakes Committee and get input on what those residents want to see.
So what's happening with the, is it Lake Warren? What's the story on that?
Dredging?
Yeah.
Army Corps of Engineers?
Yeah.
Corps of Engineers is still doing their feasibility study. It's long and drawn out, and government shutdown isn't helping them
Well, that's 2
currently.
weeks,
But
not that, 3 years, so.
no, so was it about 6 months ago or so? We met with me, Julie Rupp from Conservation, Corey Godfrey from Water Department. A couple other folks met about a place where they could possibly process the dredge spoils and save quite a bit of money. Corps of Engineers is incorporating that into their feasibility study. Could save them on the order of $1 million of trucking. Essentially, it would allow them to process the dredge spoils. What was it? Graves.
No, it's the other one on this side, isn't it? On the end of Taylor Street, the
Well-
natural upcropping.
But Graves wants to do it and involve a property switch with Forestry Foundation, and anyway.
Okay.
Long story short, the Corps of Engineers is incorporating that into their feasibility study because it could significantly change the options available.
Okay, all right, well, that's good. Jeez, it's
And
been
we
a long time.
kicked it back to the Corps, and they're looking at it.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Where does the water department report into the board of selectmen? Is there a person that they have a contact with, or just the general board?
The water department?
The water department into
They
the
report
board?
to their commission, they have their own commission. So
So they are completely on their own.
So their director
Yep,
and the town administrator have a relationship, but
I see. That's what it
they
is.
have their own commission.
Okay.
like the school committee.
One of electric, but electric was out, but not water, huh?
That's where the selectmen go to die. Can collect a stipend.
Okay, that's why, okay.
Did you, I didn't see the earmark for a stipend. What was like this?
Nobody requested.
I'll request one right
Okay.
now. There's
We'll
this
see
thing
what-
on too.
see where it goes. Liz is out on maternity, so I can speak to this. Sure.
At least in terms of the entertainment value. that's-
So on the Elder and Human Services budget,
Financially, probably.
I talked to Liz in creating it. She's not looking for any additional staff or any additional capacity there. So the budget includes any adjustments that are obligated, like the Crosstown Connect fee did go up by $500. So that's to 11.5. It might go up again next year a little bit, but that's the amount that's actually needed. Dues and subscriptions are based on the actual dues and subscriptions that they pay to the Mass Council on Aging's. The meal site assessment is based on the actual. It actually went down a little bit from what was budgeted, but this is the actual assessment. Minuteman is the same. Office supplies, pretty much, she made some adjustments in her line items between postage and professional services. Postage has been pretty much been collected through donations on the newsletter. The things that are increasing a little bit is there's 2 outreach workers now, so the training needs to be, addressed for, and the professional services for 2 outreach workers and mileage. But she feels that, she's pretty comfortable right now. And again, she's out on maternity leave, so there's a lot going on in her life, and happy things.
When is she due back?
14th.
Yeah,
14th.
pretty quickly. The one thing that I would say that will be on the Selectmen's budget update on the 14th is, and it's not incorporated in a budget because it's an actual revenue offset, is the TREAD program. So that's the tax relief to elder and disabled, TREAD. Currently, we had about $8,000 a year that we're receiving from donations, from, Cooper funds and other donors. And those funds get used. I mean, there are applicants that get screened by Tina and the other outreach worker, Nicole. If they are qualified, we give them, the maximum benefit that we can, but with only $8,000 in the fund, there's not much you can do as far as tax relief programs. So earmarked in the budget is an amount of $25,000, just to appropriate into the TREAD fund to allow them to do more for tax relief for these elder and disabled individuals that qualify. They could use as much as, we want to appropriate into it, but I did put a placeholder in the budget of $25,000 just to get the conversation started.
So this would be for people who can't do the senior work off or?
Or they could do both.
They could do
They
both.
could do
They could
both, yes.
qualify for both then,
Yes.
okay.
But, so there are income requirements, there's asset requirements, they have to go through the same screening that you would for any other type of.
But this would be the first year that would be appropriating
Correct.
funds if the selectmen
If-
decide.
yes.
they're gonna-
Sorry?
No, Bonnie was talking about the TREAD funds. And she was saying that she's putting a placeholder in up to 25,000.
Right.
And all I'm saying, again, for the public, the vast public that's watching us, that this would be the first year that we're considering funding
Appropriating.
or appropriating money into that type of fund, that's all.
Yeah, and this again reflects back to our goals, and we talked about doing things for
Absolutely,
the
but I think it's important
elder
for
and human
people
services
to.
and seniors, yeah.
Right.
No, I appreciate the clarity.
Yeah, there were a lot of discussions around tax relief for seniors, and where we have a split rate, it's tough to do that in the classification process because we're shifting things all over the place. This is an easy way to actually facilitate something like that, so.
Okay, so that will be
That'll be in
your
the-
14th.
Yeah.
August, in your 14th meeting.
Yeah.
Joe's the vice chair.
Okay. So great. Okay, moving right along. PMBC.
BMBC.
Step into my office.
Raise your right hand.
What's that?
Raise your right hand.
Make sure you think it. Make sure you think it.
If you have a question, you have to get up and go back and ask it.
That's myself.
Just wanted to know what the rules were.
Nobody has to do a disclosure form, and put it into the Attorney General because he's on
That's right,
two
it's
boards
conflict of
on-
interest.
Conflict of interest.
Possible.
Possible, potential.
Okay, so the sheet that you have in your book under page 10, what is it, 20?
20.
Is what I had developed based on my communication with the school board on Thursday. It differs from what the school board just presented this morning, so we'll have to reconcile that. But, you know, absent the school board, we have the Houghton building roof that we have to replace, repair. We have the police station water infiltration issue, which I think Alan's very familiar with.
Firsthand.
Yeah. And I looked at it this morning. I think this may be underfunded based on what I looked at this morning. So we need to revisit that. The chief asked to have the garage floor epoxy coated, so I met with him last week and we went over that. And then seal coat and restripe the parking lot, which probably Chris will manage, but we have it under our scope. So currently we have $488,450 as a request, but that's going to change based on what we work out with the school.
And what is your guess on the police station issue?
I don't know. I mean, it looks much worse than I anticipated.
What? What's this?
It's the facade on the building here.
Oh.
All the mortar joints are popping out. Alan got hit by a piece of mortar yesterday.
Did you call the ambulance?
I was the first responder.
Ouch! Are you okay?
That's what I said. Are you all right? Are you all right?
My lawyer said I can't comment.
So that's all I have.
So
Any
is
questions?
the Houghton building, that's the Historical Society?
Yes.
I mean, I thought that's a new roof effectively, isn't it, right?
You know, it was a copper-clad roof that was welded or soldered together, and there are panels like this large, and they're all soldered together. Solder joints have all failed.
Looks pretty, though.
Well, it does, but it's
And we're past
Is
warranty
that a
and all that, it's not that
craftsmanship
new?
issue?
that-
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, of course. And it's letting water into the building. The walls are all falling apart. There's mold issues. So we got to get that fixed.
The sheets weren't properly prepared when they put the solders on it, to answer your question.
So,
It was
I
a
guess that's-
craftsmanship issue. Yeah.
And we're past the point of any, I mean, warranty is one thing, but if it's a
It's
fundamental
workmanship.
failure of craftsmanship, then that,
The roof should
does
last
that
more
give
than-
us any additional recourse?
We've had the roofer up there. He's disavowed any responsibility.
Yeah, but.
Of course, I
How
would
old's
too.
the roof?
I would too, but it's a kind of.
8 years, 7, 8 years?
2009.
That's ridiculous.
No, historical.
They spent a lot of money on that roof.
Flex seal.
A little later, Bonnie, 'cause I was on PNBC on that one.
It's from 2011.
Yeah.
It's about
Little tar that Chris has got kicking around.
2011?
No, I think it's 10 years.
Wasn't
Wasn't it done with CPC funds?
It was.
I think so.
And I believe I was on the
Time
CPC.
flies,
which
huh?
would
Say,
have
did
been
they
one of
give
the
it an
first
expected
previous
lifespan of the roof?
Yeah, it would have been like 2008,
It's gonna be more than 10
2009.
years for a
somewhere around
roof. Wow.
Installed it?
Expensive one like that.
there. So it's 10 years.
Or less.
Anyways,
I think it's a little
we need
less.
to get it fixed.
Yeah, he's got the answer.
It's got to be
Flex seal.
fixed. Yeah, it's not going to.
Was that duct tape?
I got a hole in my rowboat too, so.
Blue doggies.
Steve, when
Got me some blue emu while you're at it, would you?
when they did and installed that roof, did they give us an expected lifespan
I don't know.
on it, or?
I don't know. I don't have any information.
I would imagine no more than 5 years. I can't imagine.
Why would it be more than 5 years? Previous to the repair, it had lasted since 17 what?
I know. Yeah. It's funny how that works.
But that's the thing, even if they,
We didn't
if
replace
there was a
this thing.
fundamental failure of craftsmanship, then it doesn't,
Gotta be.
It's got to be accessible to us in terms of recourse.
You know, materials could be warranted a little longer.
Is it, yeah, I was
Craftsmanship.
gonna say, is it craftsmanship or is it the materials?
It was authorized in May of 2009.
I went up there and I looked at it, and the solder joints are about that wide. They're cracked, and whether it has to do with snow loading, you know, I don't know. So, but it just, it didn't, to me, it didn't look like the right roof. It's a flat roof.
It's not a huge roof either.
No, it's not.
Now, are you gonna repair it to the way it was done, or are you gonna
No,
do something?
it'll be poly roof.
So you
So
put a new
less
roof on it.
expensive.
A big blue tarp.
That's what I was asking.
It'll be basically blue tar. Yeah.
But you're talking about a new roof then, not repairing, but actually a new roof?
All right.
Because this says repair, right?
Oh,
Oh, it
okay.
says replace. Nope, nope, the roof is repair.
It would be replaced. Yeah.
That can be done with CPC funds again, right? Couldn't it? Because it's historical? Or if you're not going to period, it can't.
Right, that's the
Yeah,
question.
it's gotta
Maybe
be-
that's what it is.
It's gotta be,
That may be why
Re-
they ended up
renovated
with
to-
that type of roof.
So we're gonna be seeing repairs internally to that structure too then?
Absolutely. Yeah.
now those might be able to be done with CPC funds because you're gonna do it to period. The interior.
That's possible. Yeah, that's a good point.
So you use historical funds for that.
Yeah.
I still have debt service out on that. Yeah, the roof's up.
How much was the roof?
All copper?
Decent amount
It was
of
a
money.
couple $100,000, we borrowed it for. yeah.
All copper?
You could take that.
Yeah, what's the salvage? Can we
I was
salvage?
gonna say,
salvage
wow,
for the
same
roof?
thing, totally.
Copper.
Yeah, I bet you could. But make sure you, somebody will.
Make sure
We don't.
somebody
If
hasn't
we
already
don't,
thought of that.
somebody will, exactly. Maybe they took the solder joints out of there, that's.
Anything else?
Oh, that's too bad. That's
Is there
Yeah.
anything with the building you bought on Robinson Road?
What's that?
The building on Robinson Road that the town bought?
So we have,
I'm not going there.
so it's gonna be discussed at the selectmen's meeting with the historical commission. We're gonna have a joint meeting. In the meantime, we have Vertex giving us a quote on making it tight, weather tight, and also Eddie Mullen volunteered from the PMBC to go down there and take a look at it. And then at the selectmen's meeting on the 14th, we can have some discussions on what we do with that.
It has roof issues too, right? Got leaking and roof issues now or not?
There's a lot of issues
Yeah.
in that building. You know, we had to hire an exterminator who grabbed 9 squirrels, they were chewing the place from the inside out, so it's.
Now it's a wildlife sanctuary.
That was actually pretty good, Jerry.
Ought to be able to get federal funds.
Might be a grant or something.
Yeah, I know. Salamander's gonna move in and they're done for it.
I have a question for Steve. On your list of items, PMBC.
Can you stay there?
I know, yeah, you can stay there. I noticed this year, and also last year, there's not a whole lot of mechanical upgrades, you know, like boilers and HVAC stuff.
Well, there is, on my list, there is some HVAC
Yeah, there's an HVAC right there.
for the school, and we will
Many of these things seem to be pavements, and
flat work.
one of the things we put this whole maintenance program together for was major equipment stuff in all the buildings, so that we don't have the boilers blow up in a school building in the middle of winter, because we haven't even looked at them in years.
Right.
So I was just being concerned that,
We do have that EMG study that was done in 13.
that's what we're really referring to, because
Right.
it was heavy in that area.
It was a 20-year look-ahead needs assessment. And I do have that spreadsheet, but I've been relying lately on the different departments to identify for me, now this elevator for the Russell Street, or Shaker Lane School, wasn't even on that list.
Right.
And that just came up today, and I kind of broadsided me.
But that seems like it qualifies, and I understand.
Yeah, but quite frankly, Alan, I was kind of waiting for the facilities manager to come on board and then go over that with him and have him kind of put a current list together.
Right.
Because we're 5 years down from that EMG list.
Yeah, you just seal coating and epoxying floors and stuff didn't equate to equipment, major equipment maintenance, so.
Correct, yeah. I mean, I think the first year we did replace the boilers.
We
in
did
the
a
high
lot of
school.
that stuff the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
But now it's sort of going like, like the other part of the capital request from the high school. There's lots of stuff in there. It used to be done by the high school, and now all of a sudden it's capital request, that extra money, and you guys are doing it.
Yeah.
So, we did, it's like Grade Creek.
Right.
Gotta watch it.
So what is
Agreed.
the status of the facilities manager?
I believe that the details still need to be worked out.
First grade.
So I was going to talk a little bit about that on the 14th at the selectmen's meeting. So what we need to do is talk to the school department, because before we just create a position, we have to be in agreement on what that person's going to do. Because
yeah.
there would be, you know, I have some ideas, they have some ideas. We have to have one idea and go forward. So I think school department's going to have Mike, Chairman Fontanella, and Kelly Clenchey. And then I just wanted to see how the selectmen wanted to handle their representative, myself, at their pleasure, and then we'll work on a job description, and hopefully, you know, maybe have somebody go out by April 1st.
That's what, okay. Oh, I thought that we talked about something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna have him on board
January.
now, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Well, yeah, but, you know, last year when we talked about that, we didn't anticipate Keith retiring and being down a couple of bodies since November 1st, so
Okay.
plans kind of went astray.
And you gotta do an MOU with the school.
We have an MOU with the school.
So it's gonna be a couple of years. Sorry, too soon.
We'll send to the Army Corps of Engineers, we'll be all set. Getting late in this budget meeting, eh?
Finance and accounting, so, yeah.
Finally, Fred. Any please?
I will do this with the,
45 minutes early.
with the clerk. So finance and accounting, there are no staffing requests made for assessors and my accounting office. There's a minor change in that, you might remember Steve said Cindy's hours were shifted to his office, the 10 that I was paying for. So you'll see between my hourly and my assistant town accountant, those two figures are 62 and the 13, they equated the 84 that was budgeted previously. So it's essentially $10,000 less. So that's just a shift of duties. In the collector office, so Linda Lord retired, you might know, in December. And Linda Lord was a 30-hour-a-week position that was split between the tax collector and the town clerk.
I know she retired.
Yeah, she did, December 3rd.
Oh,
Yep. And
go party?
We had a little gathering in
Oh.
town hall. yeah.
So a subject.
Sorry, go ahead.
So it kind of presents the opportunity to look at the staffing in those two offices. When we had discussed, you know, even the possibility of going forward with splitting the office up, you know, say we had some more room and the town clerk was able to move to a different location, or the tax collector. How do you split a person that's covering, you know, both? Where does Linda go? The other thing that's come up is Diane Corey, our our town clerk, needs some higher level help. She needs an assistant town clerk. She needs somebody that can do the duties of the town clerk in her absence. Linda did not serve as the assistant town clerk. It's a different skill set. So she's really feeling that need with the additional requirements that have come up with the public records requests. There's a whole new process that needs to be handled with that the state dictates. And she serves as the information records officer. So she took on that additional responsibility. There's been a lot more demand with website management, with meeting postings and, you know, booking rooms and all of that. The census requirements have ramped up a little bit too. So she's kind of feeling overwhelmed. And when she's out of the office, if she takes a day off and somebody needs to post a meeting, she needs to come back. It's that bad.
That's not right.
So she's looking to request that instead of getting a 15-hour-a-week admin, that she get a 30-hour-a-week assistant town clerk. And that will allow her to do the things that she needs to do and allow function to happen in the office in a more efficient manner. Things will get posted faster. Things will be on the website faster. She'll be able to handle the records requests. We will have some transition. Should, Diane need to be out, like she's got the flu right now, there'll be somebody there to back her out. That position will be at a higher level. It's, not a grade 6, it's probably a grade 9.
They're gonna have certain certifications.
Yes, they'll have training. They will serve in the capacity as the assistant town clerk in Diane's absence.
Yeah, that's something that the Board of Selectmen need to talk about, because I even think that more than 30 hours is required for there, because she's really gets backed up, and things don't get posted timely as far as on the website, even though it gets on the bulletin board, so there's a lot to do in the town clerk's office, so I think that look forward to the selectmen.
The Secretary of State's office continuously put new and more demands on her, it's a lot of compliance issues that weren't there 10 years ago.
Right.
Exactly. And there's no training, like there's no other person there that could step in. And so if something, Diane retired tomorrow, we don't have anybody that knows how to run that office. So, it's an important office. So.
We have you.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
But you got Munis, you could.
Yeah, I can do anything.
If you can handle Munis, you can handle town clerk.
So that would, by doing that in her office, it would take her staffing on the town clerk's position from, let's see, from 22,465, which would be just replacing Linda's position as is, to 46,485. So it's about a $24,000 increase. And again, it would increase her coverage from 15 hours to 30. On the collector side, she actually doesn't need, a grade 6 type of support. She just needs a receipts clerk, almost like a bank teller type of situation. She needs somebody to be able to be at the counter a certain number of hours during the day, not all day, like mother's hours, to be able to take payments in. And that'll allow Debbie to do the other things that she needs to do as the tax collector. I think it'd be an easy position to fill because mother hours positions in the community are, fairly quickly filled. And again, it would be probably a grade 4 or grade 5 levels help. So there would be some savings there. With that, if it's 19 hours a week, you could do it on a little bit less than the appropriation for replacing Linda. Just like $100 less. Again, there'd be no benefits for this position. It'd be 19 hours a week. So for the departments combined, you wouldn't be adding a benefit eligible position. Only one would be benefit eligible, which is what Linda was benefit eligible upon retirement. So you're not increasing the benefits. You are increasing the staffing dollars to divide it out like this. But you would be getting the benefit of having, a better coverage for the town clerk.
So,
That's all we need.
what's the net increase?
About 24,000.
What did I miss? I sound like we're still talking, adding an assistant town clerk and this other, and somehow it's only gonna cost us 22,000? What did I miss?
It is, because Linda is a grade 6.
Yeah.
So Linda retired at a grade 6,
Yeah.
and she was at the high step.
Yeah.
So I would be bringing in somebody at a grade 4 or 5,
Yeah.
at a lower step,
Yeah.
to cover the tax collector.
No
Yeah.
benefits.
No benefits. And then bringing in somebody in at probably a grade 9 to cover the assistant town clerk at a higher level for 30 hours. So the net of all of that is $24,000.
So the full-time.
Linda's salary plus
Nice.
24.
Linda's
Yeah.
40 hours. a
Benefit
week.
eligible.
30. Linda was 30.
32?
15 and 15.
Okay. Scratch that.
Yeah.
With benefits.
With benefits.
That's the big piece.
With benefits.
Maybe
yes.
that's the piece, because otherwise it doesn't seem like that would work. But obviously, I trust you
Yeah.
that it does, but.
Yeah. Well, because the new
Sounds
person
too good to
coming
be
in,
true.
on Debbie's side, on the tax collector side,
Mhm.
so I'm paying Linda at grade 6, step 10. I'm bringing in somebody else at a grade 5, step 2.
Okay.
So there's a difference there.
But you're bringing in almost a whole new person with benefits.
So you're
No.
doing,
Right?
No, one.
30.
As the assistant town clerk.
The assistant
You're
town
only
clerk.
adding 10 hours to the total. because right now Linda's 30 hours.
And she had benefits.
Right, and she had benefits.
benefits.
So we're looking for another 30-hour-a-week clerk and a 19-hour-a-week.
Okay, but the
Part-time.
30 hours is going to be at a higher level than what Linda was.
Yes.
About 24,000.
So where's the save? I don't.
This will cost.
Well, I don't think there's
Yeah,
a
you know.
savings. There's not a
No,
savings.
there's not a
Okay, okay,
savings.
it's
Yeah,
24, so,
It's
okay.
gonna cost
You gotta
you
add
20.
No, we're adding.
Yes.
There's a
I
savings
see.
relative to adding two positions.
Yeah, that's, I guess,
That-
what
I
I
guess
was
that's
just
really the
envisioning
thought.
from
Replacing one and a
Yeah,
half.
this-
putting in an
if
assistant
this
health
is
worker
gonna
at a much
cost you
higher level and
24,000.
replacing this, that somehow, how is it coming out only that?
If
But
this is
okay.
gonna cost you $24,000 to do.
But we're adding basically another,
Yeah, it's definitely a staffing need.
You're adding a part-time.
another
No,
19
Saving
hours.
Diane Corey.
Yes.
This is very much a question
Okay,
for
I get it
Diane,
now.
who's not here to
It's just
defend
kinda-
herself.
yeah, right.
But would this then allow us to go to the website as the official posting location of, or?
I wouldn't want
Requirement.
to speak for her for that.
I
but mean,
understand, I'm
would
not
say
asking
that-
you to, but
Yeah.
that's what I would essentially be expecting at this point. Because what we've heard over and over is that there just isn't time to do it.
Jason, that's why I said that that position with that might be more of a regular full-time, 40-hour-a-week person too. So I think that further discussions have to be had with the Board of Selectmen to really get the most efficiency out of that.
Okay.
Well, it's going to come back before us anyways, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So does Diane still work till like 7 o'clock on Thursday nights?
Yes. She has evening hours. Even beyond that, I've seen her, meet with people when they,
I've met
when
with
they
her on
can.
a Saturday.
Oh, she comes in and is needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it for that.
Anything else under the other?
No, we have no capital. We're just all munis.
Munis away, huh?
Just munis all day. And again, as Steve mentioned, we're hoping payroll goes live April 1st, with tax following that for the first actual, or the preliminary bills for next year, so. fingers crossed. Selectmen?
So next year, we'd probably be looking at replacements for Steve and Ian.
They said they would be here through November of 2020, so, yeah, that's gonna be a huge
Fiscal 20 or?
calendar. They're gonna,
2020, okay, so it's the following
20,
year.
21 is the,
But that's going to be a big deal.
yeah, I mean, we're just, getting Steve Venuti's skill set and,
Mhm.
as a treasurer is, we lucked out getting him when we did.
I think where we are today. I mean,
He's a
there's lot of
huge,
people
he's
too,
a
but
huge,
he's huge.
Part of the finance department. As is Ann. I mean, Ann puts in an incredible amount of hours.
Anthony, you up or is she going to do your budget too?
She's
I
gonna
do,
do it.
yeah.
She's-
I have time to do his
You
budget.
don't have time to do your budget? You don't stinking
I tried to
budget.
incorporate the things that you mentioned to me, so I'm sure I'm missing some things, but. So in the selectmen's budget, that incorporates legal fees, which, you see the 2019 budget amount of $291, that includes an encumbrance of $41,000, so that's why it looks like it's going down, it's not. It's just legal bills that were received in July. So the budget was set at $250 a number of years ago, and that's been, it's been pretty good. We've been able to cover everything. In years where we have negotiations, collective bargaining, we get close to that 250, but we've always been under, at least for the last 3 years. So we've avoided the perpetual reserve fund transfers that used to happen prior to that. The moderator, that's just a membership fee to the Moderators Association. So he gets his $100 membership, and that's it. Under the selectmen's budget, this includes the budget for the administrative assistant to the Board of Selectmen, or the executive assistant to the Board of Selectmen, Diane Dickerson, and it includes the MAGIC and MAPC assessments, totaling $12,000 a year. It also includes all of the dues and subscriptions for like MMA, all of the organizations. It's up a little bit this year because based on the actuals, as the town grows, our membership fees actually go up because a lot of the associations are tied by population. So We're near the 10,000 mark. We might be over it now.
We're at 98 and change.
Yeah.
27?
Yeah.
So when I looked at this, I based it on 10 for next year because,
Who knows?
you know,
100
it's
people.
close enough.
It's not that far off.
But other than that, there's not a lot of change there. The town reports and the town meeting. So this is covering the costs that are associated with putting on town meeting and producing the town reports. Town meeting expenses went up about 2 years ago when we started doing the larger displays. We had to do year-end transfers last year to kind of cover everything. But it seems like those have been very well received, so if the thought is that we're going to continue those, then we should budget for them accordingly. So these are based on actual expenses for last year, so we need to increase that, that 5,000 to 10,000. And that's basically covering the additional screens and allowance for additional chairs if we need to bring them in. The town meeting.
200 people to show up.
Yeah, just in case, the town meeting printing actually went down a little bit, so, you know, budgeting it at 4,000 is basically what we did last year. On the town administrator budget, this includes the salaries for both the town administrator and the assistant town administrator. So the budget for the salary for the town administrator, I put at the maximum amount just to give the board flexibility to do whatever you wanted to do, based on the grade and the classification plan. Now, I know the board can negotiate whatever you want to, but, and if you want me to put a different number in there, just let me know. This is just based on the highest step.
If I may comment on that, one thing that we heard, the TA selection committee heard, is that it's possible, depending on who the Board of Selectmen chooses for the TA, that our top end may not be competitive in the market. There's been a real sort of run on TA candidates recently. And so it's not to say it won't be, but it's highly dependent on the experience and qualifications of the candidates. And so the Board of Selectmen may need to be flexible with that in order to land the candidate that we want, depending on who that candidate is. So
Kind of in the margins, though. I mean, we're not talking.
yeah, we're not,
Yeah.
you know, it could be a handful of thousands of dollars above that, but I don't want you guys to be surprised if for some reason.
Should I adjust it to a?
I wouldn't. I mean, I think our expectation is that it will fall on our scale, but it's a very market-driven number.
And the last line is matching grant funds. We did this a couple of years ago to allow for any grant programs that might come up that require, you know, a $5,000 match. We don't have to rush to town meeting or wait for town meeting or try and scrape together, you know, budget funds somewhere else. If this doesn't get, if there are no grants and it doesn't get funded or we don't do anything, it just goes back to free cash. It rolls forward. So it's no harm having it there. It just makes it so that if, you know, Anthony gets an opportunity to apply for something, yeah, it's there.
Before going further with that, I just want to jump in with a couple of things, if I may. So we have $1,000 set aside for our student subscription, but conferences and meetings is $1,000 as well. MMA is this upcoming, in a couple, it's 2 weeks from yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And for the whole weekend, all 5 members of the Board of Selectmen went last year. You go, town administrator goes. I'd like to try to.
That actually comes out of your selectmen's budget under dues and subscriptions.
Okay.
So that's the 5,000.
All right, so that's part of it. I think it's extremely beneficial for us to go, and what I would like to see happen relative to that is for the Board of Selectmen in some capacity, whether it's the chairman or the town administrator, whoever, somebody should be holding a credit card so that we're not laying down our own personal credit card and putting through an expense statement. And then to kind of piggyback on that, I'd like to at least start the conversation about the Board of Selectmen getting a stipend. It's the third rail for a Board of Selectmen elected official to talk about getting a stipend, but in talking to all the other communities that we talk to, they all have something.
We used to have it.
So I think I want to start that conversation. I think this is the appropriate venue to have it. So I'm going to step forward, and I mentioned it kind of tongue-in-cheek earlier, and if the palette is not there to further that conversation, we're both posted right now, so this is really the appropriate venue, I think, to have the conversation. So
And what was the purpose of the credit card? Explain that.
So when we go to MMA,
Yeah.
we,
As a group.
the town,
Yep.
Pay up
the
front.
town direct
Just
bills.
for MMA you're talking about, or just in general? You would have it?
I don't think each one of us should be walking around with a town credit card, but at an event such as the MMA
Yeah.
or any other event that we go to, whether it's for, we went to something in Boston for
Okay, whatever.
cannabis control
Yeah.
and how different municipalities are dealing with it.
You weren't able to buy weed on your own?
I wasn't able to buy any weed, no. We're reaching our own pockets, and we have the ability to submit an expense statement. But if we're with the town administrator or another municipal employee, we sign the warrants every week. We get them in front of us, and we electronically sign the warrants every week. And I see more and more employees that have a Bank of America card. So I don't think it should be incumbent upon any one of us to necessarily put our own credit card down, unless each one of us wants to gain the miles or whatever by doing it. But I think it's a bit of an inconvenience. And then maybe that would be offset if, in fact, we did, in fact, get a stipend. We wouldn't be as worried about, the town's good about.
It shouldn't
paying
cost you
us.
money to be a selectman.
It shouldn't cost us money to, yeah. I mean, we volunteer and dedicate a lot of time to doing this wonderful job that we do. Meaning that we do a wonderful job.
Absolutely. That's what I was
That was
thinking.
a little self-praise is no praise. So
No, nobody else will.
I wanted to take this opportunity to at least get that out there and open it up for discussion.
We should take a look around at what other towns have been doing. I know anecdotally what you say is true. We're kind of one of the outliers right now.
You are. I've researched it a little bit because I know it's come up in the past. Absolutely on varying degrees. Some of the smaller communities, but are anywhere from 2,000, I've seen it up to 10,000 for large communities, right? So anywhere, in there, I think is reasonable depending on the activity in the town and everything. I mean, that's just my own opinion, but you're right. I hats off to you for doing that. But I think
Hand in hand.
it's probably in line with other communities. I just did a quick review, and I was surprised to find out that there was very few that are like us, that don't have
They
it.
don't do it,
now.
yeah. I mean, I
don't know what came around, why it
put out a
stopped.
tremendous amount of work.
Joe,
Oh, I remember it. It was during the...
Late 80s.
Can't we get 2 whacks first? Well, 3 whacks. The board expanded from 3 to 5 members, and the pay never went up, so everybody's pay went down from $500 to $300. And then in a budget crunch, it went from $300 symbolically down to $100. And then one year Steve proposed that we just eliminate it altogether when he was on Fincom. Nobody put up a fight.
well, like you said, it's not like you're not making money here. This is, a lot of this stuff you're
Well-
filing for reimbursement.
Well, a lot of the things, it's gas.
Yep.
I mean, we'll be back and forth, we're driving all over the place every night.
It's not, I don't think you have to even justify it. It's
No,
justified already
I'm just
across the
trying to
state.
explain a
We
little
just
bit.
don't do it.
I kept track of my first year on the board, I used a whole week of vacation time and 2 personal days for Board of Selectmen duties. It's to going to a ribbon cutting, it's going to an event. I mean, those are things that have an impact on me personally, and that people don't realize.
Chase and I, and I'm sure it's true of, when we're doing the sewer studies, that's, we're taking time out of our work days, and the other people in the room are all getting paid to be there.
I said I'm taking time out of my workday, it just gets shifted to later.
Taking time away from family. So, I mean, there's costs associated with this.
I don't know what the process is.
Kent is making up for it.
Ooh, yes, oh, right.
Amazing, how many people as you do are willing to be selected.
That's something that goes in front of
The commitment
town,
is huge.
vote on.
This is the line item. It used to be a line item.
Line
item that gets approved.
It's salaries elected officials, much like the town clerk's salary is.
Yeah, I mean, the Light and Water Commissioners get a stipend. So it's not unprecedented. It has happened in the past.
Do they really?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's what kind of let
That's
me
where
on.
the
When I
former
saw
Board of
that, I
Selectmen
was
go to
on.
retire.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Take a look at the board.
Sounds like something selectmen should take up at a meeting and vote on. I mean, if you think it's the right recommendation, then you should make the recommendation.
Yeah, we'll do a little,
So you can make me
reconnaissance.
put my neck out there again? Thanks a lot.
No, yeah.
Come on, Chuck, you're never afraid to do that.
No, kudos to you,
Come
Chuck.
on.
I was going to suggest that, we have a bunch of formers come out and say it's the right thing to do, so we aren't on the spot, but you took that, right off the plate, so that's good.
Jump right on that third rail.
Yeah.
We probably
Because I'll
should
probably be
have,
gone before this ever gets
should have
instituted.
pushed that to the salary review that we just did.
Is it considered a salary, or is it more of a?
Well, no, I'm just saying, as a part of that salary review we just did, that could have been
have
another
it.
leg
It's
to
true.
look out and see what's being done out
Yeah,
in
the
other
same
places.
comparable communities, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Oh, I
if we
see what
had
you're saying, yeah, yeah.
thought about it, then it would have been a good idea to do that, because that would have been a third party.
Right.
Yeah, but that's all public. I mean, you could go out and get that done.
Yeah, it
in an
wouldn't be
hour.
hard to recreate
An hour,
that
you can have the
anyway,
whole, excuse me, the surrounding communities.
It's just,
Figured out.
yeah, it's just a third party thing, a recommendation.
Right.
It's always a good idea.
As opposed to saying the Chuck stipend going forward.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, you don't want your name attached.
Well, I think it's one thing to say you need a stipend, which I don't disagree with that, but you need to set your own fee as to what that is, and that's kind of where it gets a little gray.
That's why
So
this-
I think to this point, if you have somebody else look at it and say, well, this is what everybody else does,
That's a good point.
this is the recommended number. You're not making the recommendation, somebody else is doing it for you.
Or even if you just take the study and use those communities and have somebody call and find out
Yeah.
what, at least you're using the same communities, and it's,
Right, we have admonished the chiefs for making sure that they use a representative set of communities based on our salary study, perhaps. We ought to do the same.
Yeah. There you go.
Similar demographics.
Yep. So, looks like I just stepped forward to do that?
You did. But piggybacking off your comment about the MMA and other educational opportunities, to the extent that this budget doesn't allow us to bring along, for example, the chair of the Fincom or some rolling group of folks to go down to MMA or other training and educational opportunities, it should be increased to account for that.
Well, I've gone to.
We get the invite to go.
We get the invite.
Okay,
On
okay.
Finance Committee, we get the invite. I know I have, anyway.
And who pays for it when we do? Where's it
Well,
go?
that's the
we
million
can
dollar
year-end
question.
transfers to cover.
Right, but if it's sort of the expectation that the chair of the planning board and the chair of the FinCom are participants, that could be
And I think the
important.
agenda, we know which workshops are going to be held now. The agenda's posted, so we can actually look at that and say, this would be really beneficial for a couple members of FinCom or planning board or economic development to come and take a look at. So,
This is also a chance, I wanted to toss something out there. I noticed, and it's a broader comment, across a lot of the different budgets, the education and training line items, I didn't think were always very robust in places, and want to make sure, particularly our department heads, but the staff within those, have the opportunity to go get the education and training that they need. So this is just a general comment that I would be willing to look at. We're talking a couple $1,000s here and there.
So last year, we did augment the training budget based on the board's comments for that. We were looking to try and get, $50,000 put aside in case there was,
An opportunity.
good training programs. We managed to put 25 in there. So we do have some under the benefits that are basically directed by the town administrator. So if there's a program for the park and rec director, I think that was the last one or something.
Yeah, and then just a couple of things that we're taking advantage of, some of my contacts at MMA. We're hosting the certificate in local government leadership and management here in Littleton, which gives us a free spot. And that's a $900 course. So that starts next September. We're also doing this year in March, I was able to have them have us host the Supervisor Leadership Development Program. And that's about a $500 fee, and we're sending our new highway foreman, Steve Witten, to that one for free. So we're trying to leverage our relationships to say, hey, we have some great space here, and we get something out of it. So I've also done that with the Attorney General, the Inspector General's office for our MCPPO classes, and any opportunity to say, hey, come out to Littleton, it's a great place, it's 495 Route 2, covers a lot of the state, and we'll take a free class out of the deal too. So we've been pretty successful so far, and we'll continue that.
Stop and have lunch someplace and get us some meals tax too.
That's right.
So there are also a
Stay in the
few
hotel.
capital
That's right, stay at the
items
hotel.
under the selectmen.
You what?
Capital.
Capital.
So the first one, I don't know if we need this anymore. I don't know where we are with the MS4 permit. But
Actually, I'm too
Just to give a little
humble for
closure
that.
on the credit card thing,
It's
that's
only
something
15
we
years
would be able to
old.
get before, whether Anthony holds it or Paul holds it before the,
I don't want it.
Yeah.
So can Anthony hold the
Yeah,
Board of
that's
Selectmen credit card?
totally fine.
And we
Yep.
check out of the hotel, we don't have to worry about submitting.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
You'll have one next week.
Now, does the mini bar?
Okay for you.
So the MS4 permit, we've been funding that at $100,000 for the last 3 years. I don't know if we need to continue funding it at that level, or I don't have a request for it, but I'm putting it out there because I know that that MS4 permit is a DEP requirement. We need to make sure that our stormwater, is up to whatever DEP requires, so I put it in there as a placeholder. The other thing is the space needs issues, so I put a placeholder in there for $200,000. I'm not sure if that's the right amount, if it's, but I know it was a discussion that
Right. What'd you put in?
200 space needs.
How much has already been approved?
So we had $200,000 that town meeting approved last year. We spent, we're going to spend up to $30,000 for OPM services. We just had a conversation with Kevin Heffernan last night, who was the OPM Vertex for the space needs. We talked about the architectural costs that not to exceed. He did some research from our meeting the other night. Originally, we thought it might be up to $80,000, but based on what we're talking and all the different options, that number's probably closer to 120, 130, even
Really?
maybe up to 150, believe it or not. It's because we have several options on the table, so.
Just so everybody knows, we're basically taking the lead report and the different scenarios and options that we had before us and saying, okay,
Trying to flesh it out.
qualify this a
Yeah.
little bit, give us some tighter numbers, and if we wanted to go this way, so he was trying to encompass all of what the Space Needs Working Group has kind of come down and said, all right, what if we do it this way, what if we do it, so there's different iterations of the lead report
Yeah.
essentially.
So, Fred, of that 200,000, we'll probably have easy 150 used.
Okay.
I will say, with respect to the MS4, I don't know the exact status of it, but the permit's been submitted to EPA. There are certainly costs associated with complying with that permit, but I think Chris has already accounted for those. You should verify that with him, but
Okay.
there shouldn't be any additional costs in the permitting aspect of it, at
So-
least that
If there's an
I'm aware of from where I
incremental
sit.
cost, then it probably should reside in the operating budget under the stormwater management. So I'll check with Chris Stoddard and see if there's, I just didn't want to lose sight of it and have it appear as a big bill. Are there other items that the selectmen wanted in capital requests?
The Master Plan Implementation Committee has discussed additional resources requesting additional resources for consulting services to support essentially a land use planning objective. If you look at the master plan, so many of our short, medium, and long-term goals sit at the nexus of open space, agricultural space, and housing, that what the Master Plan Implementation Committee has discussed, and I don't know where this fits in any of this, is continuing the work that's been done by hiring a consultant to look at broader land use planning across the town, not specific just to zoning regulations, not specific just to housing, not specific just to open space, but rather more comprehensively. The number that master plan implementation was kicking around was like $50,000, but exactly what the scope of that is not clear to me yet.
Now, the planning board came in with $110,000 or $15,000 worth of master plan capital requests. There were two of them. And
Yeah, one was the Great Road Corridor Study for $65,000,
Right.
and the other one was a $50,000 item for master plan implementation, Littleton Common revitalization.
okay, so that's not what we were talking about.
It may be, and there may just be a disconnect here between how it's described in this book, but I don't want to lose track of the fact that that may come in.
You should circle back with them and make sure that, just so we're not double counting, or if we're not, if we're half counting, then we should not have count.
I'd like to know more about the scope of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done to even determine
I
what
just
that
look at it as,
scope
I
is.
feel like we're hiring a lot of consultants personally.
Yep.
We've got, we've got the sewer, we've got Littleton Common Revitalization, we've got the MBTA station, Taylor Street, Foster Street. We've got a lot going on right now, so in some
Special
respects,
services.
my point is, let's put the brakes on and, and follow
Follow
through with this process and see what we end up with before we go forward with another initiative. It's just my personal thoughts on that. One thing that I did want to bring up that I had mentioned, and Chuck and I have talked about it, is the senior center. Getting that in the queue somehow, in some way, I think
Putting some money aside,
putting some money aside, I know it's part of the Space Needs Working Group, we're going down that road, we're going through a process. But I have to honestly say, the seniors they've had it. Recent discussions, they're fed up, and I don't blame them, and if we can do something for them, we need to do something for them.
Whatever you end up proposing is gonna cost money, so there's a rationale to start putting some money aside for it.
Yeah, we have to
Yeah.
get it in the queue somehow
Yep.
and start getting it on, fiscally on our radar, because it needs to be done.
Right.
And I know everyone in the room agrees with me on that. I've just been trying to figure out the process to get us to that point.
And just as a reminder, we have just shy of like $3 million in capital stabilization.
Right.
So that could be, we could augment that as we go forward.
Or earmark some of it too for the senior center so they could say,
Right,
we're saving
right,
toward it. and
exactly,
Show them real dollars and cents.
right, so.
So, again, tying back to our goals, and that's what this is all supposed to be pulling back into what
Mhm.
the goals are. And that is very much one of our goals, and as much as it is part of the master plan. We, as the Board of Selectmen, need to determine what that number is that we want to earmark to direct town meeting to say, hey, this is what we want to put aside for the seniors. And I think we need to be aggressive with that and present something in the form of an article for May.
The time has come.
The time has passed.
Actually, we were gonna put,
Yeah.
We're behind the times.
we were putting
Yeah, I agree.
250 away for a fire truck we're willing to do that way.
Right.
We should be willing to do it for the seniors. So you're talking potentially some type of an article for May.
If the Board of Selectmen is not comfortable putting forward an article for May to fund the seniors, which I think the board will be because it supports our goals. But
Right.
if that weren't the case, then I think that any number of us would be willing to put forward a citizen petition
I-
and get it done.
Yeah, I don't think,
I don't think there's any resistance. I think we
No,
just gotta
not
wait
at
for your
all.
lead on it. You guys are the,
right.
Now, what would be is there a way that we can earmark funds within a capital stabilization fund?
sure, we've done it before.
In a formal way?
One town meeting earmarks, another town meeting can.
Sure, I mean, that's always,
But you have
So-
to, but to your point, if you do that and you document it,
It's a commitment.
in order to undo it, you gotta have a pretty good reason not
Yeah,
to.
Sure,
we saved serious money
Two-phase
before
back
for
and
open space and for the high school
Absolutely.
that technically could have been taken and spent
Yeah,
otherwise, but
absolutely.
nobody dared touch it because it was
Because
earmarked that way.
It was an
Intentional savings.
agreed
Right.
upon use.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. The money that goes in there that's not earmarked is, nobody can stand up and say, well, all you can say is, well, don't take it because we might need it in the future, and that doesn't fly.
I was just asking because I
Yeah.
didn't want it to be, no, trust us, we promise this is what we mean. I wanted to actually.
No, you're right, but I think, putting it in, clearly stating what it's for, and, having that on record, undoing that becomes much more difficult, that's all.
So we'll have that discussion. and come up with an amount. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Are we done?
Just-
That's it?
We can stay longer if you
One
really want.
last one.
You can stay longer if you really
Not
want.
even-
Well, we've got everybody, we have other discussions.
We come back to
One
the one
last
we
comment.
skipped earlier.
No.
We do that one?
In this discussion we're talking about for the seniors, that's good. From my perspective, I prefer the alumni field approach. If we put a senior center on the warrant, if we approve it in May, then we go out and start building.
I like the way you think.
Because if you appropriate $100,000, put it away at the fund, which is fine, and we're gonna do it again next year, we're gonna do it again next year, we're gonna do it again next year, most of the seniors who are advocating strongly for a senior center will all be dead by the time you get enough money to do anything. But if you decide to take some money out of the stabilization fund and go build a senior center as a starting money, then you can do this thing in May, and you can have it start being built in the fall, and you can have one in a year and a half. Just my opinion.
If we can get settled on a plan that quick, Alan, absolutely, why not?
We'll come up with one.
Yeah, good.
And you're doing it at the same time as the library, if that's going through too. I know, I'm just saying.
I love libraries. I visit mine all the time. My issue is not libraries, my issue is a senior center. And it's gonna get rolling, so we might as well get on the ball and do the thing now.
Well, we can schedule, Anthony, I don't know how quick we can get timing of the agenda, whether you, Cindy, you and Chuck, you folks need probably time to have your group meet again to bring in some parameters or whatever. We
That's
can,
why I was talking.
We had a meeting the other day.
okay.
Well, that's why I was talking.
COA,
An increase in the
Friends.
architectural fee, because that's, as an option, we can have them look at that first, and maybe that gets done with a library, say, you know, so.
Hey, Alan, have you been up to Groton to look at the progress of theirs?
I'm sorry,
Have you been up to Groton to look at the progress of their new senior center?
I know they're building a new one, and I haven't been up there yet.
Okay.
I know Barbara's been there.
It's well laid out. I don't know if it meets the needs of Littleton seniors, but it's a well laid out facility.
Where is it, Steve?
It's down a country road somewhere.
You having a senior moment?
So it's not central located or anything?
No.
Is that Hollis Street?
And is the intention it's just used by seniors or like nighttime? Are there other things? that would-
They were talking about using it for Boy Scout meetings and political meetings, part of the venue, part of the design. I was part of the OPM team. Part of the design was to make it usable for political events, so it could house, 150 people standing up or sitting down. So they talked about multi-use.
Those three, we keep talking about, on FinCom, we've talked about the senior center, the library, and then the town offices. We keep, let's see what that pill looks like and what it looks like to the taxpayer, all three. Even if all three are chunked together in some manner, what that looks like. It's gonna add X to your tax bill, but, I mean, at least everybody knows what's coming. This isn't a surprise. I mean, since I've even been on FinCom, we've talked about a senior center. I mean, since day one, and
If you
I've
look
seen
back at our
studies and this studies and
reports
talk about it.
and
but-
studies we've done
Oh,
over
it's-
the years, it's unbelievable.
Right, so
Yeah.
I get it's not frustration, or maybe it is, but it's a realization that we can keep kicking it, and it's easily to kick.
Right.
Well, and that's why we should spend the money we need to spend for the architect with the space needs study. Frankly, the LEAP report wasn't worth what we paid for it, but we weren't willing to pay more to get something we actually need. If we have to spend $150,000 to get a series of comprehensive plans, okay, then we can actually lay out a multi-use center, a senior center, town offices, library, all of that comprehensively, because the LEAP report doesn't do that for us. And if the delta is $30,000, it's short money.
Right, but it would be nice to capture this, if we are talking any type of a campus feel to this, capture that money that the library's got a grant, right? Capture it into it somehow, and if that means expediting something in May, let's do it. I mean, it's
Piggyback it with the design of the
Nobody like-
library and design more
Yeah, I don't,
comprehensively.
if that's a possibility with the library, I don't know what their restrictions are, but if it is, then put it in front of town, let the town see if they'll swallow it. I mean, these are things we need, and our economy, thank goodness I heard the word of a new hotel, it's beautiful to my
Right.
ears.
We spent
We've
that
talked
a couple
about-
times
Greg and I
already
have talked
today,
about
I
a few of them. So, but
It's
what
already
I'm saying is
spent.
this is, we're not, we're gonna come down here a little bit,
Right.
like the state is as well. And
Right.
we're not gonna wanna do this when we're counting pennies. You know, right now, we're counting dollar bills, and let's do it.
We need to have a strategy to build this, and I've said this before, if there's a way we can do it outside of using prevailing wage, having a contractor build it for us on their own property, and then we buy it after, there's no way to get around that, Anthony?
No.
Shaking your head.
No,
No
because
way.
UMass
Case
Lowell
law.
had a big case, they did that with a dormitory, and the Inspector General whacked them for it, so there's just,
Did they knock the building down afterwards?
no, but
I mean, 'cause
they
you're
didn't do
looking
it.
at
They ended up paying more than prevailing wage.
Yeah, so
I'm
it's,
just kidding.
no, there's,
You can't get
you
around
can't
that.
circumvent.
So we're looking at, in reality, we're looking at a campus plan here, we're looking at.
No, not
We don't have a
necessarily.
plan. We don't have a plan.
No, I just threw that out there
Yeah.
because
That's
you don't want this to
long
turn
range,
into library
that's what they
versus
think.
senior center.
Right.
And we know the library's on schedule, we know where
Right.
it's coming.
Right.
So I don't, it's just a dangerous thing if we start pitting it that way because we're forcing it to look like that when we don't need to. We need to package this as these are things that we
But it's
we
got a
need to
better
get done.
chance
This
of
is the $20-30 million project of all of this that we need to get done. And pitch it like that, then we can decide, let the voters decide what.
Well,
what they can-
yeah, and you've
And
got a
that's what
better
we
chance
talked
of something
about for
passing if
spaces
it's
for-
all-encompassing
That
versus just
inclusive
one.
approach.
Yeah, it becomes less parochial.
Yeah, like you heard earlier, Shaker Lane is right down the road, right down the road from needing to be addressed, so it's, you can't keep kicking a can down
Right,
the
'cause
road.
that'll be next, that'll be the fourth project that
Right.
pops. Oh, we need another school, we need to rebuild this school, so.
We need 6 more hotels. Let's go get them.
My only fear is that what Alan said was that, is that we comprehend, put everything together, and it gets voted down, and the seniors are back at the exact same place we are right now, and there's nothing there. That's, I understand the whole study, but at the same time, I want to make sure the senior center gets built. My big fear is that we go through this process, it ends up costing $30 million, we go to town meeting, they vote it down, and we haven't got anywhere with the seniors.
Yeah. But at least we've done something, because right now, we just keep kicking 100,
I wouldn't see
200.
that as doing anything, but I understand where you're coming from. We need to do that. We need to do a senior center. We do not need to do a community center. We've got enough community centers.
We're in one.
We need a place for the seniors that's for the seniors. Not one where, well, the seniors use it during the day, and the children and the community uses it at night, because that never works. Because the community shows up during the day, and they keep pushing the seniors, and in 5 years, you have a senior center, or a community center that has no seniors in it. So.
Yeah, I didn't use community center, I think I had mentioned, I'm talking a senior center, a library, and the town offices. We know those are three things. The need or the priority of those, well, the library's already in front of us. We haven't, we could have forced the senior center to be right here. We could have been at a different phase, right? Where we're already talking about constructing it. It just happened that the library was very proactive and jumped on it, and they pushed it. So now it's right here in front of us, and it looks like, we could potentially be pitting dollars against dollars here to get certain things done. Well, no, we need a senior center, so I can't vote for the library. Or no, I'm going to vote for the library because that's already in front of us. Or, I'm going to vote on town offices. I can't vote for the senior center. We need town space. I think we have to talk about all three things being done.
Well, and with respect to town offices, that's gonna be the odd one out, and the need is equally there for town offices. And if we bring these up incrementally, one by one, we don't address the needs associated with the town offices and facilities because it doesn't have a natural constituency. But the need is maybe not equal, but the need is also real there. So by bringing them together, we can address it comprehensively rather than one by one by.
It may be more cost-effective to do it
And
that
maybe
way.
more
Well,
cost.
it may be more cost-effective, and you're right, then everyone knows that all three things are equally desirable. But when you put them all together and you put them in front of the taxpayer, the dollars, it'd be sticker shock. Nobody would vote for it. Nobody's gonna look at a $40 million or a $30 million price tag, you'll, oh yeah, we can do that. You're not gonna do it. We can do it one at a time.
You might get better results though by the voters, because if you want it as a senior and somebody who's behind the library wants it, they're both gonna vote for it. And then, you know, if everybody that understands the town hall needs.
Not when you tell them what the cost, the tax on the other end is.
So we need to know what a $30 million, choose that number, a $30 million investment by the town to build out these, to answer these needs. What is that impact for a $400,000 home? Period. If we decided in May, we're going for it, we're doing $30 million, what would that impact be? We can tell pretty quickly whether or not that's gonna be a yay or a nay. And I think that from what I heard coming to the meeting the other day with the COA and the Friends, there's many seniors that are, after getting this latest tax bill, they're afraid they're not gonna be able to stay. So if we propose doing some sort of an override to pay for all of these, we're gonna just make the situation worse. We won't have any seniors to use a senior center. The other thing is relative to the library is, we need to have that vote to find out whether or not it's gonna move forward or not. So we're dealing with what-ifs right now for the library as much as we're dealing with what-ifs for a senior center, or town offices, or, you know, whatever else we wanted to put forward.
Right, there's an argument to be made for all three, right? Yep. We can sit here, you know, people have their own opinion on all three.
Maybe the same argument.
So I think the community just needs to know that all three are in front of us. Whether we stagger them, let's make a plan to stagger them instead of pitting them against each other
Right.
for resources.
It
I guess
needs to
that's
be
what I'm
inclusive.
trying to say.
Right.
If it's on one campus, fantastic.
Right.
If it's not, then let's have a plan so that they realize that, okay, I'm willing to vote on this library, knowing that I'm going to get a senior center, because it's already in the docket, scheduled, and they've got a plan, or a timeline at least, as opposed to, I can't vote on this because I'm not going to get that. And I don't think that's a fair way to do it, but that's just my opinion. I think you lose votes.
I mean, we looked at the library, and again, on a 30,000-foot level, but about an $8 million bill for the library was worth, what, $160 on a house.
$400,000.
That's $400,000.
Oh, and what was the cost?
160.
For what?
But that was over,
Just-
that was over 20 years, right? I would assume that if we were gonna do all three of these, we would probably push it out to over 30 years or something like that. It
Okay,
was-
so it's
You can do
120. So it's
Is-
100. Okay, so at 8 million, you're talking 30 million. That's 2.5 times, that's 3.5 times. So it's between $300 and $600, depending on the length and what it actually costs. So, I mean, it's a $300 bill minimum. It's a $500 or $600.
$25 to $50 a month.
Yeah.
So that's it. Then that's what you're pitching.
You know, I mean, it's
As sensible as it sounds to put them all together, they're not all on equal footing. I mean, the library's
Right.
essentially already designed, they're ready to go.
That's what I mean.
The senior center, the need's certainly been established, we're just gonna pick which option to go with. And I don't, you know, the third piece, if there is one, I don't think that's been sold or explored enough at all. The town hall,
Yeah.
I mean, once you see the dust settle from the other two projects, then we're gonna take a look at what we're left with. But if a couple of them happen to come up at the same time, fine, well, we'll just deal with it, you know. There's no sense to wait on the senior center. What are we waiting for? The need's been established, it's really just picking the right option. If it's one of the properties that have been looked at, or whether it's developing next door to the library, that's just a decision that has to be made.
Has any consideration of renting space for a senior center?
Oh, I don't know, I mean, we've looked at, you guys
We've
have
looked
tried
at-
the properties, I don't know whether renting's been considered, but.
There is the potential to do that. There's gonna be a build-out, and then you have to, that whole prevailing wage thing, you know, there's
Even if you're
there's pros and
renting.
cons.
And it's hard
Renovate,
too,
yeah.
Fred, I mean, we're
Rent.
so limited with options in Littleton
Not the rent itself,
for
build up.
those types of spaces, but we've talked about a lot of different options.
Yeah, there are several options. There's a building option, there's a already built place. So we're looking at 2 or 3 different things.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll get more information with the architect, even with the building that's built, you know, there are buildings in town, but if a restaurant can't go in there, a senior center does need a diner, you know, so can a septic system, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and, you know, an existing building may not really work when you find out, so, but these are all things that, you know, we get the architect in and give the options, so you, the taxpayers, can make an educated decision on how you want to go forward.
At the end of the day, you've got the community that it serves, in this case, the seniors, and maybe meetings like this and whatever else. But then you've got also the community, the rest of the community that's paying for it that isn't going to use it. And that's what is that costing me, right? That is the taxpayer. So that's what I'm saying, get out in front of that. I mean, Fred, you come up with numbers pretty quick. You just said, you know, potentially $300 if we did all these projects to the taxpayer. $300 to $600, right? So $50 a month.
Depending on how big the
That's
budget
something that a lot of taxpayers can say, oh, that's great bang for the buck for what we're getting. I'm willing to do that. But it's a lot harder to swallow when we're not talking that piece of it. We're just talking these huge projects and not saying, yes, we're committed to all three, or we're committed to discuss all three. But with the one thing I absolutely know is the library's coming. Whether we vote yes or no or whatever, it's just that I think it's unfair to the library to pit it, knowing with all these other needs, and it's unfair to the seniors not to put them right in line with it. So it's just, so I will leave the town offices out of it because I understand we have a space, but it's
far enough away.
But it's not, because if, let's say, just take, no offense, but let's take the senior center out of the equation altogether. If the library moves forward and it gets passed and voted on, it's going to leave a vacuum. And that's going to cost us something. And that, any renovations that we may do to that space, in all likelihood, will trigger ADA compliance, which is going to cost us a significant amount of money. I just requested from Kathy Miller the assessed value of the Shattuck Street building to find out what that,
That's
what
not
is
the same as making a case for a new town hall. And I think that
No.
just throwing it in there is increasing the likelihood that the whole thing goes down, because it's just
What whole thing?
the whole package, all the buildings.
There's a whole lot of options on the table. And so we're
We need to
trying
wait.
to.
We're gonna get
vet
the
those.
architect to come in, show us, you know, talk about our options. We can have much more discussion about this before May.
Yeah.
Well,
But
if we want to do it in May, we got to decide probably in the next month or so whether we're in a position to pull the trigger on something.
Right, no, I know, but I think
Realistically,
everyone.
you've got 2 months, right? I mean, you got to make a decision
Right.
in March, right?
Right.
Right.
I think it's March when you got to close the warrant.
Yeah, but we should
You gotta
honestly be in a
leave-
position well before
Oh,
that.
no,
Right.
absolutely. No, that's what I'm saying. You know, you've got a very short fuse.
Right.
If you're even half thinking about doing something in May.
Right.
So if you're serious about it, then you better jump on it.
Right.
If you're not, then
Well, of all the, many different things we're juggling, it's the only one that we didn't really have a set timetable for, you know? I mean, the sewer project, as complicated as it is on its track. The town administrator hiring process is coming to its conclusion. You know, we've had a lot of stuff going on.
Right.
The building needs thing that's the thing we need to
I
kind
just
of,
think we've come to a
Frame it,
crossroads
yeah.
with the seniors. It's time.
Yeah.
And we have to make it work one way or another, so I'm glad everybody in the room's on board. We definitely have a consensus here. We just gotta, like Fred said, we have to formulate a plan.
Yeah, just
now.
done talking about it, now it's
Yeah.
action.
And we have 2 months, so.
okay. On that happy note.
right,
Yeah.
Anything
Football's
else?
coming on in an hour, so we're.
right.
Good timing.
Might be a
Hmm?
Second.
Third?
Oh.
All in favor?
We don't need to
All
vote,
right.
right?
We're out of here. Thank you.
Ron, you can take these back.